Touchdown, Alabama.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Ponies 5 of 8 on third down. Here comes the heat. Jennings off the back foot, slings it into the end zone, and caught for the touchdown. Keyshawn Smith.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
3-3-5 defense. Here's some trickery. It's a flea flicker, and it works to perfection. Jatavion Sanders wide open for the touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
3rd and 9. Four-man rush against Plummer to the end zone this time, and it's intercepted by Bethune. He made a great play earlier and comes up with the pick in the end zone. The Florida State defense does it again.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Yeah, 7 catches, 157. That was supposed to be a reverse pitch, and it blows up, and Salter makes a positive play and breaks loose, and he scores 35 yards. Wow.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Johnson makes a cut. Forget about that. Johnson, first down, slides down, and the Washington Huskies are going to win the final Pac-12 championship and punch a ticket to the college football playoff.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Smokey is visiting his family in Florida, and he'll be gone for the next couple of days. Craig and I taking you through the Thursday and Friday. And, today it's interesting. We get a lot, like this week, we get like a lot of big news early in the week. There's like the rush to the transfer portal. Now it's like, it's kind of interesting to see like the names dripping in. Trevor Etienne from Florida was the big name today. He was very highly recruited. He's a really good running back. Garrett has already
come on down.
Told Brian Kelly, you get him or we're done, to get him back to Louisiana. So that's a big name that's in the transfer portal today. Manny Diaz looks like he's on his way to Duke. By the way, number 1 on the top 5 list. So I didn't like call it or anything, but I just thought it was a good fit. So I like it when those things work out. And Craig, at least for here, us locally, an interesting story in Big 12-wise, Kansas is expected to hire former Baylor and BYU offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes as their new offensive coordinator. They are a wide zone that's a little bit different than Baylor, I guess, a little in how it runs, but they're based out of the wide zone. Lance Leipold's always been kind of that guy. Now he brings Jeff Grimes to Kansas to replace Andy Kotelnicki, who's on his way to Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations to Jeff Grimes, first of all, and welcome in, everybody. What's up to the chat, and we appreciate you being a part of the show. I feel actually coherent today, so it's a step forward. I was telling these guys, like, I should not have been here yesterday. Got bugs going around, but I'm good to go today. Glad to be here, and glad that we have some fun things to talk about. But with Jeff Grimes, I think it's a great hire. I think it's a great hire for Kansas. I think that he fits what they do pretty well, that they have proven that they've got some, O-linemen and some running backs. And I think most of all, you look at the quarterback situation going into next year with Jalen Daniels coming back, and what can really set off that wide zone and make it pop even bigger is having a elusive dual threat, playmaker there pulling the trigger for you. So I think that this is a very interesting hire because I wasn't expecting him to remain in the Big 12 per se. I thought that, maybe he'd, venture off just to somewhere else for a year or two. There for a little bit, it was rumored that, maybe he was going to get some action with like the UTEP job, and then his name got pulled out of that. But didn't really know what the next chapter was going to hold for Jeff Grimes, and sure enough, he's going to be in the Big 12. So good for him. But I think that with what they do, as you mentioned, and with just the personnel that they have and that they'll be able to have for him next year, it's understandable when you go, the guy from Baylor, didn't they just have a bad couple of seasons? Yes, they did. Weren't they pretty bad on offense? Yes, they were. His time had run dry here. I thought it was time for a change of scenery. The offense just got dull. They didn't have the linemen to run the offense the way that they needed to. They had running backs that didn't fit, that were among your best players, which, what is that? You had your quarterback constantly getting banged up. And so, it just wasn't working well here. And in general, Dave Aranda had to do something, and that was the logical move to make. But for Kansas, you're on a good run. Is he going to be Andy Kotelnicki? No. He's not going to be like that dynamic, running up the charts type of play caller. But he's going to be very effective. And I think, like I said, with the personnel they have, the style they have, with the head coach that they have, I think he's going to be very successful there. I don't want to predict that they're just going to run through the Big 12 now, but I think that that's a very solid hire. And I think in the new look Big 12, where everybody's going to be basically on par with one another, there's no more looking up, and there's two teams who have been swimming with 5 stars and high 4 stars for the bulk of their recruiting classes, and everybody else is maybe getting a few of those guys, but mostly not. It's going to be much more of an even playing field, and I think the wide zone is unique. I think that was part of what made it pretty cool for Baylor to have. But I saw one of those comments, after the hire of Jake Spavital well, they're not that unique anymore because they're just running the spread like everybody else. And I do think there is some merit to that, whereas the wide zone was something that had you been able to maintain your offensive line and had you been able to maintain just sort of the status quo on that side of the ball, you would have been different from everybody else, and you would have had some sort of a trick up your sleeve. But now Kansas will be even more unique in that way, and that'll present a problem for teams needing to defend them. So I think it's a good move for the Jayhawks.
Yeah, and look, the problem here, I don't know. The only problem I think Jeff Grimes had was that he did not adjust the scheme to the talent until they'd already kind of let the wall fall down, so to speak, before they started to patch it. The hole was already there. It was kind of over. And, because they brought him in to run the wide zone, he kept trying to run that, but they didn't have the linemen that they used to. And they didn't realize that soon enough. The rest of the world kind of did, and they thought, well, they'll get it. We'll move them around. We'll shuffle the line and they'll get it. And it just wasn't ever that. So now that they move on and they're going to recruit you. Also, you kind of have to deal with the recruiting realities of your situation. Can you get wide zone linemen easier where you are, or can you get spread linemen where you are? So if they can get spread linemen here, that's I think the best thing. And that's the position they really have to enforce. It was the weakest spot on the team this year, the offensive line, by a long shot. So if they do that, they'll be fine. But in the spread, they didn't have the guys to run that offense anymore.
The spread's all over the state of Texas. So pretty much every lineman growing up here has run the spread at some point or another at this stage. And if not, maybe they're in unique little communities, but it's not like a drastically different, uphill learning curve to try and figure that out. I think it does take some of the pressure off the offensive line as opposed to what you need to be able to do running the wide zone. But Kansas runs the wide zone, so it's not much of a change for them in the long haul or the short term. It's just, kind of staying in the vicinity that you've already been in and just adding a guy who's got a lot of experience running that type of offense. And I think that, it's a great move. It's a great fit. I wasn't thinking about that really when the KUOC job came open or when Jeff Grimes became a free agent, but seems to fit really well to me and at first glance, and I think that'll be a great little partnership with Leipold and Grimes moving forward, and that's a a fun thing to look forward to if you're a Jayhawks fan next season is that your offense is going to be in pretty good hands. And, I mean, you already feel confident with Leipold being your head coach. But, yeah, this isn't going to be too much of a drastic difference for them. And I'm glad to see Jeff Grimes land on his feet. So he'll have his running backs and he'll have his offensive linemen that should be able to execute his offense unlike what he had here the last couple of years. And Baylor will be able to move on to something a little bit more familiar here around the state of Texas and something that they should be able to recruit a little bit better to in a quicker amount of time. Because that's the thing with the Aranda and everything Baylor related, they're on a clock. Like, that's the thing. This isn't a building process. This is you have to win next season. You have to show substantial improvement next season. There is no if and but about the situation. It's now or never for Dave Aranda, so they couldn't afford to. Let's run it back with Jeff Grimes and let's hit the portal like every other school in America and try to find linemen like every other school in America. They don't have the time to do that. Administration, fans don't have the patience to sit through a couple years of a rebuild after you've been bad for a couple of years. So, it's a good fit for Jeff Grimes. It's a good fit for Lance Leipold and Kansas. And Baylor is looking elsewhere, and they'll, cross paths here. I haven't even looked at the schedule for next year. They play Kansas next year? I'm not even sure. I'll look it up.
Yeah, they play Kansas here, but their final 5 games are on the road. Have y'all noticed that?
Baylor's?
Yes.
I haven't looked at I mean, I looked a couple weeks ago, and I was thinking about when the Aranda conversation was going on and how the expectations were going to be for next year when you start talking about what he would need to do. And there are people thinking, well, you got to at least make a bowl game.
They don't have dates yet for a lot of the games.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they don't. So you're thinking about expectations for next year, and it's like, well, you at least got to make a bowl game. And I was just looking at what we do have in the schedule, and yeah, the first month they could very well be 2-2 to start things off, if not like 1-3 or something, depending on how the schedule actually shakes out. But yeah, they don't have an easy road by any means. They're not going to catch a whole lot of breaks on that 24 schedule. So it's going to be very interesting for them, and interesting for Kansas as well to kind of see how they position themselves in this new look Big 12 minus Oklahoma and Texas, and how that starts to stack up.
Well, when the game is over on September 14th, I think Dave Aranda needs to be 2-1. Otherwise, it's going to be a long haul because they play Tarleton, Air Force, and at Utah. So they need to be 2-0.
They need to be.
They need to be 2-0 going into Utah, or there's going to be problems. And look, not saying that they're not going to beat Utah, but again, it's like winning at Utah is hard. Ask anybody who ever plays
coming back.
Yeah, Cam Rising's going to be back. But they have, next year's schedule: BYU, TCU, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Colorado, Houston, Iowa State, Tech, and West Virginia. Every single one of those teams, every single team of their schedule, including Tarleton State, who, obviously, but every single team on the schedule for next year had a better record than Baylor this year or beat them.
Yeah.
So, even Colorado's 4-8. Baylor's 3-9.
Well, if anything, you play them in Boulder too.
Yeah,
there's the fact that you're going to play them in Boulder, and that's a long ways away. They got to hit the portal and find 15 or so players like everybody else will do in some form or fashion. But yeah, the point being, Jeff Grimes, that's a great hire. I don't think Kansas will skip much of a beat. I don't know that he'll be as wildly successful as Andy Kotelnicki, but I do think he's a good hire. And then for Baylor, yeah, we'll see on Jake Spavital, but they don't have. Again, hammering it home, it is a must-win type of a year for Dave Aranda. It's win or go home. And you look at their schedule, and there's not a lot of guaranteed wins. Tarleton's about the only one on that entire schedule out of the 12 games. And you're right, we don't know dates yet, but we do know sites. And they are going to Boulder in that Colorado game with whatever the Buffaloes look like. They are going to Lubbock. They are going to Morgantown. They are going to Ames. So it's going to be a wild one, to Utah, to Salt Lake City, as you mentioned there as well. So, yeah, that's going to be very, very interesting for the Bears. But, yeah, happy for Jeff Grimes.
Manny Diaz is it's not official yet, but he is it looks like he's going to be the head coach at Duke. This will be his second head coaching stint because he was the head coach at Miami. He's been a defensive coordinator, one of the best in the country for the last 25 years or so. And he's an FSU grad, so go Manny Diaz. Maybe that's why I have an affinity for him. But was 2 years the head coach at Miami.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that's definitely why you have an affinity for him. I was wondering why you love Manny Diaz so much. Because
he's never even, outside of his GA year, which was my freshman year, he's never even coached there. So
yeah, I don't know. I've never come across him as like, you know what, I really like Manny Diaz. I mean, I think there's people who have high opinions of him, but yours just seem to be like kind of random. And so now it's not so random. It makes sense. You went to the same school.
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't know that. Like he coached at Texas, which I didn't like. I coached at Miami. Obviously, I didn't like that. But he is someone who has been one of the better defensive coordinators in the country. A 21-15 record and an 0-2 bowl record at Miami, and then was shown the door because of Mario Cristobal. He's someone who I think in the right situation will be a very good head coach. I think Duke is kind of the right situation for him, but Duke's a hard place to win. Mike Elko just did it for 2 years and then took the money and ran and went to A&M. So maybe Manny Diaz does that same thing. We don't know, but Duke does certainly have, maybe now has opened the door for football a little bit more. I think it's a really good hire for them. I think that, especially with Curt Cignetti going to Indiana, I thought that might have been the go-to for Duke, but he went to Indiana, and here they are. They're hiring Manny Diaz. I think it's a good hire. I think you got to build around your defense at Duke because you're not necessarily going to maybe attract the best quarterbacks in the world, and you're academically kind of boxed in, so you've got to be kind of a defense first, tough as nails team like Mike Elko built them, and that's what Manny Diaz will do.
Yeah, I mean, they had a really good defense there at Penn State last year. That's obviously, kind of what added some more gas to his name as far as getting back into the head coaching ranks, and was rumored for, various jobs that got mentioned. He got mentioned, multiple times for the various jobs that were opened up, but Duke was one that appeared to be like it could be, a good fit for some of the reasons that you mentioned. And I think that Duke's a program now that's been pretty steady for quite a long time now. I mean, at this stage, Cutcliffe had them not as gangbusters or anything, but they were a very respectable program, great developer, all that good stuff. And then Elko comes in and has an incredible little run, a very mini run, but a really good, stint there. You just hope, or you wished that they could have seen that play out to the fullest extent with Riley Leonard had he not been injured. But yeah, all of a sudden you lose your coach, which is not a surprise, and need to pivot. And I think staying with the mindset of playing great defense is probably the way to go for a school like Duke, and it's an identity that you already sort of have. So that seems to be a really solid hire for them. He had a great year. What's he learned from his last stint? What did he learn from when he was at Miami just a few years back? And how does that play into what he can do now as a head coach with the Blue Devils? We'll see. But I think it's a very respectable and nice hire. I don't know who they could have gotten that necessarily is going to take away the sting of losing Elko with how good he was, how quickly he was. But I think Manny Diaz is a nice enough hire, and obviously familiar with the ACC, familiar with that region, and should be able to do some pretty good things there in what is, a very tumultuous ACC right now. What does that even look like moving forward in the next couple of years? But it will look a little bit different, at least with some new schools next year, with SMU and Cal and Stanford all joining the fray. But yeah, I think that's a good one, and I think that just about brings the carousel to a close. You still got Tulane out there. Duke is now filled, but
James Madison is filled. Bob Chesney.
I think it's just Tulane and Grambling at this point is what you're looking at. So the carousel, I've said it a few times, but really not that crazy this year, and jobs filled pretty quickly without too much drama, which I don't know if that's good or not. I think it's good because it's not all messy, but it's better, I guess, when it's messy for people like us to be able to talk about the mess. But, yeah, it's been a pretty just calm carousel, and guys just falling into place and dominoes falling along with them.
Well, I think the only thing that could kick it back up again would be if this next story doesn't have the ending that Michigan thinks it will, and that according to Sports Illustrated's Richard Johnson, the long-awaited contract extension for Jim Harbaugh has kind of come to light here. $11 million a year over 5 years, but it's on the condition that he will not pursue an NFL job in this hiring cycle, which he has the last couple of years with the Vikings and the Broncos and I think someone else. But there are going to be teams that have interest in Jim Harbaugh, and it will be interesting to see how this goes, and if he actually does sign it and doesn't do it, or what if he agrees to the contract but doesn't sign it, and then the Panthers call, or the Bears call or the Raiders call and say, would you like to be the head coach? That will be interesting. And they're also doing this knowing that he is going to be suspended again, probably next year. So, and maybe 2 times. Maybe it's one big, I don't know. But everything that's going on, Michigan, because they're in the CFP, they're undefeated, they're 3-time defending Big Ten champs. None of that matters, or all that. None of the other stuff matters because of that. So Jim Harbaugh has an opportunity to remain there for the next 5 years. Part of me thinks that that he's going to go to the NFL, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I won't pretend to know his motivations or where his head's at. For the longest time, people have been trying to push Saban into retirement, right?
Yeah.
Let's go pull out the articles from the last decade. He's got to be close to retire now, or he's heading towards retirement. So, never say never in the college football ranks, just period. But, yeah, I don't pretend to know what Jim Harbaugh wants to do. He's an interesting guy who I don't know that too many people really know what's ticking in his head half the time. But I think that, Michigan's doing its best to try and cement his era and make sure that it's long lasting and that there's not teams that every single year get to jump in this time of year and say, well, he's leaving, right? And play the whole game that people play with Saban, right? But now they basically do that with Harbaugh. Like, well, he's going to go to the NFL soon, right? Or he's going to go to the NFL, or he's going to be suspended, right? Or he's going to this or that. I can only imagine what some of the recruiting talk is surrounding Jim Harbaugh. And this would be a way to silence all of that for the most part, is to go and sign a contract that not only locks you down, which we know doesn't really mean a whole lot outside of the buyout money, which can mean something, as we saw, with various jobs over the years and with A&M most recently. That's not nothing, the buyout figures at some places, but, having that in there of where you're not going to go and flirt with the NFL seems like a weird clause. Like, it doesn't even seem like it'd be legal, really. Like, you can't go get a job the way it sounds. But that would be a way to kind of tamper out or stamp out some of the rampant speculation that occurs every single year with him inevitably wanting to return to the NFL. And, especially now with he has this NCAA issue. And do you want to continue fighting with that and whatever that's going to look like on the other end? So, yeah, I'm very curious to see if he goes through and signs this thing, because if he does, and I think that gives Michigan a lot of muscle and a lot of weight to throw around, quieting the fears about him leaving. And if not, well then, boy, oh boy, go grab the gas cans and throw those on the fire too, and let's really get crazy with talking about Jim Harbaugh and whatever his next steps will be, because that would be a surefire sign that he's not long necessarily for Ann Arbor if the right offer comes along. So yeah, that's a very telling option there for him of sign this and basically lock yourself down, or let it be known of like, I'm just waiting on the right gig to come and holler at me. And so, yeah, his part of the coaching carousel could definitely shake things up and make it a bit more dramatic like it has been in years past.
Yeah. If somebody like tries to hire Lincoln Riley out of the blue, that could shake it up. But I don't think that's happening this year. I do think it is eventually going to happen.
Yeah, this just isn't though Lincoln Riley going from Oklahoma to USC or a lot of like the in-college sort of moves that we've seen over the last couple of years. This was much more of like job open, job got filled, job open, job got filled, and not a whole lot of drama for the most part. But yeah, that would obviously be a different animal if the Bears come calling for Harbaugh. If any other number of the Chargers or something were like, "Hey, Lincoln, want to just stay in town and come coach Justin Herbert?" Would that be enticing to you?
And look, no one in LA cares about the Chargers, so you can kind of work in relative anonymity, which you like.
Yeah, you'd have less media pressure, that's for sure. I mean, although I don't know what it's like at USC, it seems like it's been pretty ratcheted up. Just at least nationally, he's gotten a lot of coverage, but it would not be, I wouldn't think, to the extent of what he's dealt with at USC. It'd be a little slighter in the NFL ranks.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I don't think that's going to happen this time around, but you never know. There's
a lot of NFL jobs that are going to be opened up. I mean, we'll see when the time comes.
Yeah. I mean, the Panthers are already open. That you would think that the Bears are going to be open. You think and the Raiders are already open. So
Chargers probably
going to be open. So
Redskins or Commanders
Washington for sure. Yeah, Washington is going to be open.
That's 5 jobs right there.
Yeah. So,
but we'll see. There's a lot of assistant coaches and former head coaches that usually get those calls first. But I would have to think that Jim Harbaugh would be pretty high up the list, and Lincoln Riley not too far down for some teams out there.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Craig, you were out when the news broke about the proposed new subdivision of the NCAA. We did not get to talk about it that much yesterday. I'm curious just to hear your kind of unvarnished thoughts on it completely without us having to hit a wall. So we'll have a little time before we get to Olan Buchanan of TexAgs.com, who will walk us through the Colin Klein hire plus all the things going to the portal. Would love to talk about Walter Nolan. I'm really surprised that one happened, given that Mike Elko was the guy that came back in, but that probably had a lot to do with Elijah Robinson leaving as well. So we'll talk to Olan about that at 3:45. But I do want to hear Craig's thoughts on some things. Do you have breaking news or anything?
No, I mean, not so much breaking. It came out a little while ago, but I want to say that that Avery Johnson came out and said he's staying at Kansas State. So that was pretty huge news in the last hour. I guess we just didn't see that. But, yeah, that was down as I was trying to make my way over here and just popped into my head of oh, yeah, that's also a pretty big note from today. So
especially since yesterday we had John Kurtz on, and he was lamenting everything bad that's going on, including what is now the dismissal of Naquan Tomlin from the basketball team. So
yeah, and that story is not exactly black and white of well, he didn't do anything and he's just magically no, he did. He very much did do something, and it's a whole thing, and I don't know. It's very hard to sort through the noise of K-State fandom when it comes to that story. I say that respectfully because it's just a little bit more complicated than just reading Twitter opinions, But, yeah, Naquan Tomlin on the basketball side of things, no longer with Kansas State. That was not a very good piece of news for a lot of Kansas State fans out there. And then this afternoon, Avery Johnson, after a little bit of rumor mill stuff about, how he was going to view the coaching change there at OC with Colin Klein and whether or not that could possibly push him into the portal. Well, he just verified this afternoon that the mission hasn't changed, is I think what the tweet was titled, and confirmed that he'll be back and be QB1 for the foreseeable future for Kansas State. So that's some much-needed good news for the Wildcats out there. Congrats to all the EMAW folks. I know y'all needed that pretty desperately after the last 48 hours. So that's a good piece of news and a major get for the Big 12 as far as your quarterback class next year and what that league is going to look like. So, yeah, I wanted to make mention of that as well. But we can talk – I mean, this college sports thing, man, it's all over the place right now off the field, but we can get into that a bit more for sure coming up.
Absolutely. This is 365 Sports.
Don't miss the Wrap Up the Year sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. As the year comes to a close, we're offering unbeatable deals and a wide selection of new 2023 Jeep models like the Grand Cherokee, Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Gladiator, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4XE. In addition to incredible savings, we're also offering generous trade-in values for your current vehicle. Upgrade to a newer model while getting the most out of your trade-in. Hurry in, these deals won't last long. Shop our great selection of new inventory and start the new year in style.
Pioneer Steel & Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel & Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel & Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. Smokey is off for the next couple of days. Before we get into the ever-changing world of the college athletics landscape, Craig, Mike Aresco, and this is something that I think it was floated out over the summer that this might be coming, but it's now official. Mike Aresco, the commissioner of the American Conference, is going to retire. May 31st is his last day. So if you want to be a conference commissioner, there's a job open for you.
Yeah, with Gloria Nevarez, she's going to jump over to the AAC. I mean, that seems to be the other hot commissioner name that we've heard outside of the Power Five this offseason in the news cycle. But, yeah, I mean, Mike Aresco got dealt a lot of drama and a lot of movement and realignment and just obstacles along the way. He fought hard for his schools to keep them and to satisfy them and to also promote them. And I don't know or pretend to be an expert on his tenure as, American commissioner and just his career as a whole. But I respect the guy for the job that he did in a position where you're not dealing with the best hand all the time. You never have the best hand.
I keep getting poached. And you keep on.
Your teams get picked apart. You have a team make the playoff. They're now headed to the Big 12. This team does this. They're now headed to SMU wins your conference, but they're on the way out to the AAC. And so, they were a conference that got poached and picked over quite a bit. He had to fend off or try to fend it off as best he could, go and fill in those openings when those schools bolted, and just had a lot to deal with. But I felt like he mostly dealt with it with a lot of class. I say mostly just because I don't know every decision that he made along the way and how favorable or popular it was. There was a time when I did find him to be a little bit annoying. It was over the summer when he had that long letter that was 3 pages long, if you'll remember, and it was about it was in the midst of all the realignment, and it kind of, I'm trying to even remember what the subject matter of it was at this point. It obviously didn't matter that much in the long run because I can't even remember now. But I remember thinking, I don't know, that kind of came across as a little bit whiny.
The Group of Five, Power Five thing.
Okay,
the moniker of why it shouldn't be.
Thank you. Yes, that's what it was. Of you should not call us the same way you call them and the different labels. But I understood his point. It was just at that stage, it was sort of all right, dude, we get it. You got to say what you got to say, but move on over. Outside of that, though, and that's a very minor thing, he did a good job with what he had at his disposal, and the American had a lot of really good moments. I don't know what their future holds, but got a team into the playoff, had some really good runs with various versions of various different programs under that umbrella. So I don't blame anybody right now in college athletics, especially up in that part of the management swing of things to decide, after a long career, I think I'm about done as a commissioner and I want to go move on to something else. So good luck to him. That'll be a tough spot for the American, I would think, to fill. And a lot of challenges for whoever does decide to take over that job. But I thought, Mike Aresco did a really good and a respectable job and fought for his conference like you would want any commissioner to do, and even in the face of the giants out there who hold far more sway and money and power and all those things. So, good luck to him.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see where that conference goes and what things are in the future, especially given, realignment always spins, and he's been absolutely picked clean the last few years.
Yeah, I saw a couple schools, fans of Tulane and stuff who were like, good riddance. I'm like, what did he like? Dude did everything he could for you. I don't know why you would have that opinion on him if you're a school that's in the American. I know that there were some of those kinds of feelings for the schools that left for the Big 12, but even then, I don't. It's not like he was trying to hold people down or anything like that, So I think maybe that's just kind of an uninformed knee-jerk reaction by some who just see a guy's leaving like, oh, good riddance. That's all I can figure because I thought he did a pretty damn good job from best I could tell as an American commissioner.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think he did a great job. Like sometimes he did those things where he got out like, yeah, you're a little over your skis here on this one, or
sure.
maybe this wasn't the best time to roll this message out. But you get why he's doing. He fought for it and well respected in the industry, and best of luck to him in retirement. And look, if I was Mike Aresco and a commissioner of a G5 conference, that might be the best time to retire, given the news that we're getting.
Yeah,
where. I mean, this whole thing's about to get shaken up. Like, I don't like the proposal as it came out. Like, this is not what they're adopting. It's going to be negotiated, and there's going to be a lot of these things. But Craig, Charlie Baker is essentially just admitting where things are. Like, look, this all has to change, and if there's no way that we can wrangle it, we have to do something completely different. And here's the new model that I'm proposing, and let's see what sticks to the wall.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. I think he's just trying to cut things off at the pass as best as he can. I don't think anything's changed in the last 48 hours. I mean, what's different now? Has any split occurred? No, I think this is the warning tremors, but those have been going on for like 2 years now, guys. I mean, we've been talking about the super conferences. We've been talking about the great split, all these names that you've probably seen in the last couple of days. We've been talking about what happens to the Iowa States, the Oklahoma States, the TCUs, et cetera. What happens to the Wake Forests, the Louisvilles, any team you think would be left out of some super format. What happens to those schools? And I think this just plays into that whole narrative of that's what's coming down the pipeline. But really, nothing's changed. It's a proposal. It's trying to cut things off at the pass, as I said. And right now, it's nothing more than that. But it could become a lot more than that. I just don't know where you begin to unpack things with the NCAA because there's just another lawsuit that was filed by some former athletes earlier this afternoon. And I swear I've seen about 7 of those in the last 3 days. All different shapes, sizes, backgrounds, and complaints and, everything else. So I don't even know how and where you start with the litigation the NCAA is going through right now and all of the cases that are up that they're up against. So it's clear that something is going to have to give. Like eventually the pressure just builds to where it's too much and you just can't contain it anymore. And it feels like with every new case, like the pressure just continues to build and build and build when it comes to the NCAA and college football in particular. But yeah, I think he's just saying the quiet part out loud, but I think he was trying to figure out a way to do it where it's not as simple and clean as somebody on Twitter proposes, which is like you just take the 24 here and you take the 24 and then you put them in. It's the NFC, it's the AAC. Like it's not that simple. And so I think he's going for the best option that you can put out there and that makes some sense, but is also maybe at least somewhat doable, but I don't know how doable that even really is. I don't know how schools, other than just being blindsided by him coming out, the timing of it and him saying it publicly, the quiet part out loud, I think that's the part that caught everybody off guard. But as far as like action and reaction to that, that remains to be seen as I think we all kind of try to digest and figure out what exactly this would mean and how you start making the steps forward to that. I don't know. But it does feel like there's going to be a break-off of some sort, and what that's going to be, I have no idea.
Yeah, Keith Gill, who we've had on the show a couple times before, the commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference, he said, most of the reviews outside of Greg Sankey saying he wished he'd been consulted more on it have been pretty like, all right, look, we can either change things or we can keep going to court every month and losing in court. So I think the interesting part's going to come in of revenue sharing because I don't think, Craig, that, I don't know if you saw the story, Reddit had it, we was on the group chat about, somebody had an idea of, make a play, get get paid.
Some Nebraska fan or something I saw that.
Of the Venmo thing. Like,
you put on the screen, like a dude gets a pick six and you throw up his Venmo tag on the Jumbotron and you say, like, donate here. And then everybody immediately in the stadium, which I don't know if everybody's got great Wi-Fi or not, but everybody can immediately Venmo this guy whatever money they want to because he just got a pick six.
Yeah.
That's basically I read it.
That is, while it might be a nifty little idea, it's
sounds
not
so stupid.
It's not sustainable in any way, shape, or form, because eventually you're going to be like, well, you guys are getting $90 million a year for your TV. Like, why don't you use that to give the players? So, you quit asking me for.
Oh, wait, you
stuff.
mean that the idea was trying to take more money out of the pockets of the people already doling out all of the money? Oh, no way. The schools don't have to pay anymore. You, the fan, while you're already paying all that money to sit in that seat to watch that Jumbotron that you probably donated to, whether willingly or unwillingly, while you're paying those high concession prices and those $8 beers. But hey, you got beer now. Let's distract the people with that. Now you can chip in right away and donate to the player who just made a play rather than us having to do it. Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant. And you know what? There will be folks who don't even think about it, and they're like, yep, what's the Venmo again? I'll send it. He's incredible. I want to give him money. But it's a brilliant idea to take more money out of the fans' pockets potentially. Yeah,
and look, they might do it, but as far as, I just don't think it's, eventually you're like, wait a minute, you're relying on me to Venmo this guy $20, and everybody in the section to do the same thing because of that 12 games or 6 to 8 games a year. Like, come on now. The other thing is they would do it too. They could do it through social media where, like, hey, touchdown Riley Leonard. Here's Riley Leonard's Venmo.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, just.
I don't like it. I hate that idea. I think it's, interesting at first glance of like, okay, that's interesting. And then immediately I'm like, whatever, next idea, because I just think that just, I don't know. It just feels very detached, doesn't it? Like all of this just constant donating of money to student athletes or to college football, basketball, baseball, whatever players. That's all fine, well, and good. But just sort of let's flash after a big play. The guy's Venmo on the I don't know. There's something very impersonal about that and just kind of weird about it that I can't quite put my finger on. But I don't like it. I'm all for the paying of money, but there's got to be better ways, like the schools direct depositing that from their own coffers on a monthly basis or every couple of weeks. The ones that have all the money and the backing and the donations and things for those types of payments. That would be a better route, in my opinion, than the fans live, Venmoing a guy during a game after a big play. That seems a little silly to me.
Absolutely. When we come back, Olan Buchanan, TexAgs.com, talks Walter Nolan, Colin Klein, the rest of the portal, the changes at A&M. That's all coming up next. This is 365 Sports.
Oh, Richard Carr, Buick GMC, how lovely are your SUVs. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick GMC, I love the trucks you have for me. Strong and tough with luxury, room for all my family. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick GMC, you are the dealership for me.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and more. New bikes arrived and are waiting for you to test yourself, compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power, and with indoor cycling classes every day. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and a tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman, assistant junior pro Kennup, adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website, wacotennis.com, or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back. 365 Sports, our good friend Olan Buchanan, TexAgs.com. And Olan, it's been an eventful few weeks, obviously, at A&M, from Jimbo Fisher's dismissal to the hiring of Mike Elko. Colin Klein's there, the transfer portal. I know that you have been extremely busy chasing all this down. Let's start, because we haven't had you on since Mike Elko got hired, but your thoughts about the Mike Elko hire and how you've already seen it change kind of the trajectory of where A&M is going.
Well, first of all, I thought he was the obvious guy, and I was surprised that it came out that they were pursuing, or at least interested in, Stoops, Mark Stoops. When that came out, I was like, what? Okay. But then I guess there was somewhat of a revolt, if you believe that narrative, and I kind of do. And I think Mike, as soon as he got here, he hit the ground running. He's made some changes in his coaching staff. He's hired some coaches, and he's already active in really active in the transfer portal. I think he's extended the offers to about 10 guys already. Met with the team. Some guys, from what I understand, there were some guys that showed up late for the first meeting and let them know that they don't have to be here. So I think he's already in the process of putting a more a little bit more discipline than some of them are used to here. At least that's what we're hearing from people inside the program. And from what I understand, he's got in contact with recruits. So nobody's been more busy or busier than him, because he's had to address a lot of issues in a very short period of time.
Oh, and maybe somebody had a flat tire, but not a great first impression, huh? The brand new coach is here, and you decide, I'm going to show up late to the first meeting that he holds.
Again, I'm not inside. We can only get what some people tell us. That sometimes they're players, and sometimes they're other people that are close to the program, and that wasn't necessarily, from what we're told, that unusual. So, if you kind of look at the way things are going here, that gives a little bit of an explanation or a little bit of a glimpse into maybe what some of the underlying issues are.
It sure does. It explains a lot for sure. So, Olan, I mean, like you said, there is a lot to unpack. I think the biggest thing here in the last 24 hours, though, has been that hire at offensive coordinator with Colin Klein coming over from Kansas State. Kansas State fans, for the most part, are devastated. He's one of their guys, as you know, but also did a really good job there with that Wildcats offense. What are your thoughts on the hire of Klein, why it makes sense for Elko, and what that does for A&M and their offense and their attack moving forward?
Well, it sounds good to me, but you guys probably know more about him than I do because, you're following the Big 12, and
Right.
quite frankly, when I see Kansas State, for the most part, it was in the Big 12 championship game last year, and maybe some highlights here and there. But my attention is always on what's going on in the SEC. Now, it's my understanding. I looked at the stats, and I saw how productive their offense was. Do I have this wrong? Were they ranked like number 10th in the country in scoring? Or maybe I got that wrong. You go through so many stats in your mind, they get all jumbled up, and at least they do it in my mind. But it's my understanding that, they were pretty, I don't know if I want to call it electric because I didn't get to see enough, but very efficient and effective. And quite frankly, to my knowledge, and again, you guys know this better than me, who's the great player in that Kansas State offense?
Well, I mean,
I know
last year's Deuce Vaughn.
Last year's Deuce Vaughn, but
right.
this
so
year,
13 NFL running back.
Yeah, this year was, I mean, kind of the model of just using what you had. I mean, like they had good players for sure,
they had good players. They had a top 25 offense. They're still really good. They just weren't as good without a program defining type of a player like a Deuce Vaughn was. He was just so incredibly good for them. But yeah, I mean, they ran into some injuries. But they were a fun offense and a little bit different depending on if they had, Will Howard at quarterback versus Avery Johnson at quarterback and that kind of thing. But yeah, they were a lot of fun to watch.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at. I mean, they were, again, from what I understand, a very effective offense.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to score a lot of points, move the ball. I think they were here. Texas is playing them for the national championship. And it's my understanding they were like on the 4-yard line against Texas and could have forced overtime to try to win it. And you're doing that again without, I don't want to sound like I'm putting anybody down. Let's just, without marquee offensive players. Maybe that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, he's going to have a chance to to work with some good players, we think, depending on who's still around. But we think he's going to have a chance to work with some good players. And look, if he can be a defibrillator for that offense that's flatlining, then he'll be able to run from air around here because people have just gotten so frustrated with the stagnant offense that Jimbo Fisher refused to acknowledge was a problem.
Yeah, certainly did. It was like, you're not bleeding. No, fine. Don't worry about it. Like it was that kind of vibe you got from Jimbo Fisher on the offense. Well, defensive side of the ball, though, I guess there's a lot of concern. There should be a lot of concern. You're losing Walter Nolan if you're A&M, and he's in the portal. I would have thought that Mike Elko would have been able to keep him. Is this Walter Nolan just trying to cash in? Is he upset, mad about something? What happened?
I would think maybe there's a lot of those things you just mentioned may be in play. I mean, it's not out of the. I haven't talked to Walter, so I don't want to act like I'm saying something I know. But I think it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think we've seen it here. I think we've seen it other places where players will put themselves in the portal to see what to be offered out there. Of course, just because you're in the portal doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be transferring. Edgerrin Cooper was in the portal last year. A&M persuaded him to stay, and he had an All-American type year. So maybe it'll be the same with Walter, but here's one big difference. Let me tell you, Elijah Robinson was the most popular coach on that team, especially after the tragic passing of Terry Price. And he recruited a lot of those guys. He's really close to the defensive lineman. And with his deciding to take that defensive coordinator position at Syracuse, a lot of players, I think that were close to him it's not surprising that if he's not going to be here, a lot of their loyalty was with him. So it's not surprising that you'd see some defensive linemen get in and at the very least check out, see what else is out there.
Olan, I do believe Elijah Robinson is going to coach in the bowl game. Is that correct?
Yes,
okay.
He did say that he was going to stick it out through the bowl game, and he said all the right things about Texas A&M being good to him, and he has a job to do, and yada 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 yada.
Gotcha.
And then I said, so are you gonna recruit any of the guys on A&M? He said, no, that's not. No, I'm the coach of A&M. But
right.
If they get in the portal.
Well, also, there's a big 5-star D lineman from A&M in there. Yeah, he might change his mind on that.
If they're in the portal, then that's a different story.
Yeah, they're not technically at A&M anymore. Yeah,
but he's done a great job here, and he is beloved, and they wish him the best as long as. But they hope that he doesn't get any players from A&M in the portal. But I would not be surprised if that turns out to be the case.
So when it comes to the portal outside of Walter Nolan, who are some of the names? Because I've seen the names trickling across, but you've seen that from like every school in America, right? There's all the hundreds and hundreds of names. Anybody stand out to you in a major factor type of a way, whether they're a young guy that could have developed more or whether there's somebody who right now is producing outside of Walter Nolan?
Well, I think a young guy that could have developed more is Chase Basantes. They started him at right tackle this year as a true freshman. He had some struggles, as you would expect a true freshman to have. And plus, there are those that say his natural position is in the interior line. They had him out at tackle. So if you judged him on this year, which would be foolish, you'd think, okay, not a big loss. But there's a guy with an awful lot of potential. But he was really tied to Steve Adazio, the offensive line coach, who was let go last week. So his getting into the portal once Adazio was let go was pretty predictable. I think Tariq Chappelle was their best cornerback. He's from Philadelphia. So, Philadelphia, not too far from Syracuse. Maybe that's going to be an option for him. Or, again, we'll see if A&M's able to persuade him to stay. Jake Johnson had a nice year at tight end. No one is surprised that he is in the portal. Of course, we expected it as soon as his brother Max, because we knew his brother Max was going to be getting into the portal. So we figured as soon as his brother Max landed somewhere, he'd probably, and Max, I don't know if you saw it, he's transferring to North Carolina. So I suspect we'll hear that Jake Johnson will be going to North Carolina pretty soon. Beyond that, I don't know that. Jardine Gilbert is a safety that started here last year. I think he got hurt this year, and Jacoby Matthews took his place, looked better. Beyond those few right there, a lot of the guys in are really guys that haven't played a lot and is probably looking for an opportunity to play elsewhere.
Olan, I know that a lot of people have made, Evan Stewart's definitely getting the portal because of whatever happened at the end of the year, and he wasn't at the LSU game and all that, but he seemed to have made it clear that he's staying, right?
I've heard that some coaching changes has inspired some of the receivers to go ahead and wait and see what's going to happen before they go all in. Like, for instance, I would have bet $100 a month ago that Moose Muhammad would be the first guy in the transfer portal. I was always scratching my head. Why is they not playing this guy? Every time he plays, he produces. They didn't play him very often, and so I would have thought for sure he's still around. And Evans been kind of, he was hurt a little bit, and I think Evans, who knows what's going on through Evans, but last year everybody was saying he was going to transfer, and he didn't. So he's an interesting character. I'll say that. I don't know whatever Evans decides won't surprise me. If he stays, I'll say, yeah, I'm not surprised. If he leaves, I'll say, well, I'm not surprised. He has a lot of talent, so I'm sure they're going to try to talk to him and tell him that he has a place here if he wants, and they'd like to have him here, but I don't think that they're going to bend over backwards for him, because what does it say? The old line, the best ability is availability.
Yeah.
And when he's available, man, he's a good player for him, but he's not always available.
So, Olan, does it seem like a veil has been lifted or like dark clouds have kind of left the area of College Station right now? Does it feel like things have been a bit refreshed with this change at head coach?
Hell yeah. You know what it is? It's kind of like this. If you're having this analogy I use, you got a problem with your car and you take it to the mechanic. You take it to the same mechanic for 3 years and he keeps saying, yeah, here's the problem, and you keep having the same problem and he never tells you anything different. Eventually you just got to go to a different mechanic. And I think that it became a punchline around here. The word execute. Well, we just got to execute. We got to find the inches. We got to execute. Got to find the inches. And really it became a joke. If you had a question about something, you might be talking about something that has nothing to do with football. Hey, they got how long is it taking us a long time to get our food at the restaurant? Well, I guess they didn't execute. It became it, and you're like, well, no crap. There's no execution, but what are you going to do to change that? And so, Mike comes in, and again, Mike was well known here for doing a fabulous job as a defensive coordinator. And it just seems like that already they're getting more organized. He's going to hire a special teams coach. We understand. Well, they didn't have a special teams coach, and the special teams were horrible here. So things like that, you're thinking, okay, that makes sense. Brought in an offensive coordinator that's well respected. Billy Lucci made a great point about Colin Klein. He said, when A&M hired John Chavis from LSU, the LSU people were saying, hey, take him. And even when they hired Jimbo Fisher, you had a lot of people down in Tallahassee was saying to us, well, you're going to like him at first, but you just watch. It's going to burn out and there's going to be problems. And lo and behold, they were right. Everybody, it seems like in Kansas State's upset that Colin Klein is leaving. And so that's kind of a good sign. So I think so far what Mike has done gives you, if you're an Aggie fan, some hope where there was none before, because you just felt like you're in this cycle that's just never going to repeat. Like you're at a red light. You ever get at that red light and it's broke and it never changes? And it feels like that's where you were with A&M football. And maybe Mike is that green light. You can start going again. But, of course, everybody feels good about their coach in December, right. A new coach in December. Let's see how they feel in, next November. But at least now, you feel like you have a reason to believe instead of just saying, well, thank you, sir, might have another.
Yeah. With Jimbo Fisher, there was a lot of ego involved, especially after he won the national championship at Olan at Florida State. And then when he went to A&M, it felt like any kind of questions were challenges to that ego. And at this point, Mike Elko, and I don't mean this as a dig, but like he's got to prove himself to have that same kind of like ego. So that's not a wall that people have to get over right now. He's just there to work.
And let's be clear, the first 3 years, everybody was very pleased with Jimbo. And the program just seemed to be on an upward trajectory. And then the fourth year, okay, his quarterback got hurt, we'll give you a pass. The fifth year, like, okay, now, yeah, you got a lot of injuries, but we sure didn't expect you to lose to Appalachian State and go 5-7. But okay, you had a lot of freshmen. Well, this year, everybody's ready to play, and you just can't get out of your way offensively. And the Emperor had no clothes, and it was obvious. And so something had to be done. Mike has to prove himself, and I think he's willing to do that. And I don't know if you saw the contract. A&M's always going to pay their head coach a lot of money. He's got a base salary of $7 million. He can make up to around $11 million, but that last $4 million is all based on incentives. And he was willing to do that because, first of all, because he's getting $7 million. But secondly, he understands that, if you're going to make you're going to get paid like a national championship coach.
Did we lose? There he is. Go ahead, Olan. Sorry, we lost you for 1 second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just saying that, he agreed to the incentives because, if you're going to get paid like a national championship coach, maybe he acknowledges that you need to win a national championship, and not for the previous team but the team that's currently paying you. So he agreed to the incentives because he doesn't mind trying to having to prove himself.
Olan Buchanan, TexAgs.com. Olan, always great to talk to you. Thanks for hopping on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Olan Buchanan. Yeah, that's an interesting situation in College Station. They're they have everything, but they don't, and this is Mike Elko compared to their last few hires is kind of formulaic, and that's good. They needed to do that. So it's interesting, like the transfer portal stuff there. I know that, one of the big things was trying to keep that roster together, and you can only do so much, but also, if you're Mike Elko and you got guys who just don't want to be there, then you got to let them go, no matter what their stars were.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's anything unique to any coach that takes over a job. Is you have guys that want to stay, guys that don't want to be there, they don't fit for whatever reasons, they don't want to show up to the very first meeting. Like, how beyond stupid is that? Yeah. Even if Jimbo was allowing it, which, as Olan referred to and kind of said, I mean, just what a level of just stupid. I mean, to not show up on time for the first meeting of your brand new head coach when you're not under contract, you're not guaranteed to be on this team for much longer. So, yeah, that's puzzling. And then again, maybe not, because as he said, like, that wasn't the first time necessarily that's happened over the last couple of years. So I think that speaks volumes as to kind of what was going on there. And I think his answer to the question about, just does it feel differently? And he's hell yes. I mean, it sounds like he's relieved. That says a lot as well. So, yeah, they needed to make a change. They did, and we'll see how it goes. But, the hype will start to ramp back up, and maybe they'll just leave it a little bit more realistic this time around and kind of let Elko build, as opposed to expecting and having fake plaques for national championships being presented, before the guy's even done much of anything at all. So we'll see on that front, but that would be the wise move, I think, for A&M, is to kind of keep it low-key for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. So, no, I think that Shadowbeard, in hindsight it's 2020, and in the last two jobs we assume Jimbo never fixed the culture at A&M, and his best player at FSU was arrested for theft and suspended for shouting obscenities on campus, but he was not arrested for stealing crab legs, but he got in trouble.
You're talking to Jameis Winston's number one fan over here, by the way.
But yeah, and the shouting obscenities thing was the stupidest thing.
Footnote.
It was such the stupidest thing for him to do. Like, I totally agree with suspending him. It sucked. It was before Clemson and they wound up winning that game anyway, but it was stupid of him to do. But it was also one of those things where I was like, I know he's your stud player, Jimbo, and it made me always think about Jimbo. Like, did you not tell him, like, listen, buddy, I know that, like, this may be understood and all misunderstood and all that, but you cannot, given the awful thing that you just got clear of, just go around being yourself. Like, you have to keep it within the fairway here, man. Like, I don't think that was ever really, until that incident was, like, conveyed to Jameis.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long time ago. I don't know. Yeah. I clearly probably not, and clearly even if he said anything, it didn't matter because the action took place, and that's been widely talked about and debated. But, yeah, I mean, to Texter's point, there's obviously some cultural issues, some red flags for whoever wants to go, hire Jimbo next, because inevitably there will be somebody. But, yeah, to hear that, not showing up to meetings on time was kind of a regular thing. That makes sense. That goes with kind of the narrative that was coming out of College Station, kind of the feel that was coming out of there. So, new day, new coach. We'll see if it is a new era for the program and the way that they want it to be, especially with Texas and Oklahoma now rolling in to be bedfellows once again. So it'll be a fascinating little journey to watch, and I think Mike Elko was a really good hire, but time will tell.
When we come back, we'll dive more into what's going on in college football and breaking news and some of the things that have gone on today, some of the transfer portal things. We'll get into that at 4:30. Taylor McHargue will take us through his thoughts on the postseason. I'm sure he's got many. 4:45, Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. And at 5:30, we've got Nikki Spagnola at DallasCowboys.com. This is 365 Sports.
The right
right call can make all the difference on and off the field. I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. When it's time for a new car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgin Ford is the right call. Come check out our award-winning lineup of best-selling models in their class, like the Mustang, Explorer, Expedition, F-150, and Super Duty. Make the right call for your next vehicle at Bird Colgin Ford. Bird Colgin Ford proudly supports Baylor Athletics. Sic 'em Bears.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, is your holiday item superstore. Half spiral hams, 8 to 10 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Pit hams, 12 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Bone-in hams, 18 to 22 pounds for $3.40 per pound. Whole raw turkeys from 12 to 16 pounds for $2.50 a pound. Whole smoked turkeys, that's smoked turkeys at 9 to 12 pounds for $3.75 a pound. And mini pit hams, 6 to 8 pounds for $5.99 a pound. And don't forget, they have full service butcher shop where you can find what you want: pork, poultry, seafood, and beef. And I bring up the beef because big beef tenderloin or a prime rib. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family, full service bakery with fresh baked kolaches every morning and bread and cold beer and wine. Tailgate needs from pellet fuel to charcoal. Waco Custom Marketplace and the holiday items, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. GXG works with partners and donors to offer a suite of options to student athletes, including connections with local businesses and nonprofits, entrepreneurial development, and other avenues to broaden the NIL profile of student athletes. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Donors may wish to support the general fund or direct funds to specific sports. Oversight of the NIL Fund is managed by the Board of Directors of Startup Waco and the Baylor NIL Advisory Council. GXG is a program of Startup Waco, a tax-exempt organization under Internal Revenue Code Section 501c3. Donors should consult their tax advisors regarding the tax deductibility of donations to GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back. So, Ohio State, a wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr., who is a Heisman finalist, alongside Michael Penix Jr., Jaden Daniels, and Bo Nix, told reporters on Thursday that he's not sure about the NFL because he said coming into the year he wanted to beat the team up north, which is Michigan, and win a Big Ten championship, and he didn't do that. So he thinks it's a great motive to come back, and that's what I decided, because it's something I definitely wanted to do in my Ohio State career. Not being able to have done that yet opens the door for me to come back. Marvin, do not tease the people, because he's probably going to be the third pick in the draft. So I don't know if your draft stock can get much higher than not jumping Caleb Williams and Drake May, but he's probably going third.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to reveal his big life choice in a random interview before the Heisman ceremony.
Yeah.
I just don't think that that's the place where he wants to get the attention for his decision. So, I think we all know that that's just lip service and that he will be in the NFL draft in short order. But, nice to say. See no reason other than, wanting to beat somebody as the reason to come back, and the fact that you're not guaranteed to do that. I don't know how much you want to go through the entire process of an offseason and another college football season and getting banged up and all those things. So, it's nice thought, but I'll believe that when I see it. That seems like it's just being as kind as possible. And I do believe he wants to beat Michigan, but at this point you're as far away from that as you've been in the last, 2 decades in terms of, having the winning side of that rivalry. So, that's Michigan's momentum right now, and Ohio State trying to grab it back. They could certainly use Marvin Harrison Jr. To do that, but no, he's going to be playing on Sundays next season.
Yeah, no, I know he, I agree with why he said it. And look, his dad was famous. That's more words than I ever heard his dad say in his entire NFL career. But there's going to be a segment of Ohio State fans. They're like, did you hear that? He didn't get to beat Michigan, so he's going to come back. No, he's.
Yeah, I don't think Ohio State fans are stupid either. I think probably everybody understands that he's, I'm sure he would love to beat Michigan. I'm sure he would love to come back and beat Michigan, but there's no guarantee of that even if he were to come back, and he's got millions of dollars waiting on him, and every business person who actually has his best interest at heart would tell him it would be stupid to risk coming back to college football for another year. There's absolutely no, you're not going to make more money through the collective than you would make with being the third overall pick in the draft. I don't believe that for 1 second.
No, absolutely not. Your apparel deal alone.
Yeah,
will dwarf it.
It would be stupid on Ohio State's part to pay that much money for a guy, one single guy, when you could spread that out.
Yeah, especially when they're going to have to get a quarterback.
Right.
Yeah, they got to go. Brian Hartline will find you some wide receivers. He'll find you some wide receivers. Right now, an 11-1 quarterback, they pushed him out the door. I don't know if they pushed him out the door, but he left.
I think they didn't care to see him leave. I don't think it was really that big of a deal for them in the long run. Kyle McCord did a respectable job, but they can certainly be better at quarterback. They can be more elite at quarterback. They were more elite with 5 guys leading into Kyle McCord. And then him and Devin Brown had their little, back and forth, and that turned into what it was. And McCord was the guy ultimately. But, they could absolutely go get Cam Ward and be better off.
Yeah.
So, or any other number of guys that are out there right now. It's a big guy that they're going to be losing, a big-time player. And, I look forward to seeing where he does end up in the NFL, because I think he's going to be fun to watch for many, many years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, according to Pete Thamel, FSU defensive coordinator Adam Fuller signed a new 3-year contract with FSU, which includes a raise, which he has certainly earned. FSU finished number 6 nationally overall in scoring defense for the undefeated ACC champs. And you guys saw the defense. If you watched the last 2 weeks, you saw the defense essentially win 2 games in a row. Adam Fuller, he's going to start getting talked about for head coaching jobs soon if he wants one. Alex Atkins, the offensive coordinator, is, but he is calling an elite defense right now in Tallahassee. So contract extension for him, and they've got him in the fold for 3 more years or until somebody else dwarfs that deal and makes him a head coach.
Yeah, did a really good job there. So rewarding him is something that makes sense. And you do have already with Alex Atkins getting a lot of attention. And, I'm sure he will now start to get even more attention with a little bit more light shined on him thanks to the announcement of this contract extension, maybe more people start to poke around and pay attention. But no, it did obviously a wonderful job, a good enough job to get them into the college football playoff. If it was actually a system that made any sense whatsoever, like all of the other sports that we follow do. But this is college football, so it's unique in that way, where you can have a year like that FSU defense had and do everything that you possibly can, including winning every single game, and it doesn't matter. So yeah, that's a unit that rightfully deserves a lot of praise, and he deserves to be rewarded for the job they did, because they did everything they possibly could to get to their ultimate destination, and it just was out of their hands at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig, on the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl Zoom today, Mark Stoops and Dabo Swinney, Kentucky and Clemson are playing that game, lamented the trickle-down effects of the transfer portal. And look, we know that Dabo hasn't used it, but, look, if I'm going to dog Dabo when he says something kind of off base, I'm going to at least talk about it when he says something that I believe has merit. And he said the problem is tampering. Stoops not in agreement. And we could fix it easily if they'd let football people fix it, but they usually don't listen to the football people. And I don't know if he said anything more true than that. Like it appears that most rules about recruiting and all that are not made by the coaches at all. Although I know that you have to limit their scope a little bit, but as far as do you want to fix tampering? I would ask the coaches, what would you want us to do to fix this and stop it? Because I don't know if there's definitely a way to fix it, but there might be a way to, at least ding somebody for it.
You think so?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I think that Dabo's been pretty clear about his distaste for the transfer portal and just kind of all that's going on right now. I know that there was another lawsuit. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I didn't start following and loving college sports because of all the court stuff. But that's where we are, and I don't know how much interest I have in a lot of that moving forward, to be perfectly honest with you. I might just resort to talking about lower-level bowl games versus all of the court stuff going on at various points just to keep it fun and interesting. But, you had a West Virginia attorney general who's part of a lawsuit against the NCAA now regarding their transfer rules. So now the transfer rules are in the court system, even more so with the eligibility rules and, how fair is it for, the athlete, and are they treated fairly, and this and that. And it gets into, are you, I guess, handcuffing these athletes and their potential to go out there and earn and have freedom of movement and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. But there's a conversation that's been ongoing now for 3-4 years about there needs to be something done, and that's kind of the general vague nature of that conversation. And we all arrive back at the same point where there's just more lawsuits and nothing ever really changes in regards to the portal itself. So, I definitely think there needs to be, I hate to say this freaking word, guardrails, because we've said that a billion times. I think there does need to be to some extent. I don't know what that looks like. I don't even know what's doable at this point. Yeah. Everything's tied up in the courts. Everything's going to probably go against the NCAA. So does that further lead you into this break-off league so that you can form your own rules or what that looks like? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, guys. I'm not a freaking lawyer. I didn't go to law school, and so I don't know how all of this works for the most part, and I don't know what the future looks like, other than it's going to probably look different than the current, present looks like at the moment. And something is going to have to change in some form or fashion with the transfer rules and NIL and all that stuff. But man, I just feel like it's just the list is growing and growing and growing, and nothing's ever really changing. And just at what point does it finally stack up so high that it just tips over, and comes crashing down like a Jenga set? That's what it feels like right now, of you're just pulling these little blocks, and which one's going to finally bring it all down. That remains to be seen. But man, it's on shaky footing, it seems like. And you have Charlie Baker coming out with his comments yesterday, which, again, was not like anything they're enacting right now. It's an idea that was floated. Yeah. And so, for your Super Conference fans, that was an idea that sort of plays into that, but not entirely, because that didn't read as though it was just going to be the two conferences and that's all. It's more of who would want to be a part of this, and there could be plenty of other schools that would be a part of it. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know with all these freaking lawsuits and rules and all that stuff. That's not why I started to like college football. I do think the NIL and transfer portal has made things more interesting, but I do think it's just so all over the place. The tampering, which is how we started this.
Yeah.
I do think that that's, way out of control. But again, how do you prevent that? By passing a rule? Is that going to, when's that ever stopped anybody in college sports, especially football, from trying to find, ways to cheat still? So, we'll see. But the coaches probably do need to have some say, and I don't know how you go about giving that to them or what that would look like.
No, absolutely not. When we come back, Taylor McHargue, ESPN and CBS college analyst, joins us to give us his thoughts on the postseason, some of the more interesting things going on there. And, of course, I want everybody's thoughts on the CFP. I need more people to validate my pain, which has been plenty so far. Occasionally I'll see somebody's like, nah, they got it right. And I'm like, oh, this person's evil.
It depends on it. It's a whole – the argument is how do you frame it?
Yeah.
Are the 4 best teams in the playoff? Yes. Yeah. Are the 4 most deserving of the playoff? No.
Yeah.
Well, they technically got it right. If you look at it this way, they did. They didn't if you look at it this way. And so there's people playing around with there's only one way to look at it. It's like, no, absolutely not. They got the 4 best teams in. I agree with that. They didn't get the 4 most deserving, and there's a debate on whether that's what you're supposed to be doing from the get-go. My whole thing on Monday, and will continue to be, this is not even a Florida State thing. This has nothing to do with Florida State. This has nothing to do with Alabama. I just think it's the biggest joke of a postseason in American sports, and it's a stupid way to crown a champion, period. Bottom line, no matter who got screwed, whether it was this year or whether it was years ago with Auburn or, any team from the G5 that was undefeated and didn't get their crack at it, or whatever example you want to point to of how your team got screwed before, and it's not just Florida State. It's not about Florida State. Even though Florida State wants to make it about Florida State, it's about just the idea that this is a dumb-ass way to crown a champion in a great sport, and there's got to be a better way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Taylor McHargue, when we come back, this is 365 Sports.
TFNB, your bank for life, is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com in White House, Texas, just outside of Tyler in East Texas. And another auction, Samantha, is gone. Aged Wagyu beef and so much more you have on your ranch. How did it go? And what is next?
So we had our Very Merry Beef auction. We tried doing one completely online this time, and it went really well. It lasted for over 3 days. We are planning another auction January 30th. This auction will be an in-person, online also, a live auction like we did the first time. You come out to the ranch, dinner is going to be provided. It'll be a variety of steaks, hamburger, sausage, tri-tip, brisket, roast, all of the different Wagyu cuts. But we still have online our family bundles, summer sausage. That's a huge hit this time of year. It's perfect to give to teachers or hostess guests or to have out on your charcuterie board for your Christmas dinner. We have those available online. Our last day for shipping is December 13th. That way we can make sure that you've got it there by Christmas. TexasBeefHouse.com. Use your STICK'em10 code to get 10% off. So we just want to tell all of our customers Merry Christmas. Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank you so much for your continued support in the year of 2023, and we hope that you return to us in 2024.
And they will. Repeat customers, because the product is amazing. Aged Wagyu beef, TexasBeefHouse.com, and this is 365 Sports.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Taylor McHargue joins us now, as he does every week at just about this time. And Taylor, we'll start off, we'll just go in chronological order of the week. Your thoughts on the College Football Playoff Committee's decision and where we are here in the postseason as we end this stupid 14 playoff before we go to 12. Are you a best four or four most deserving guy?
Well, stupid is the exact way to describe it, right? Let's start there. It should have never been a 14 playoff. The committee and the structure was bailed out by and large, except for the very first year back in 2014, all the way till now. More often than not, it sorted itself out, and the committee did not have to make the tough decisions. This year, it blew up in their face, and the chaos scenario that everybody sort of assumed wouldn't happen, because I think everybody assumed Florida State would drop one of their last two. They didn't, and we ended up with the committee having to choose between the best team and or the most deserving team. Now, my opinion is based off of what the rules, how it was written. And I don't like the rules, but how it was written calls for the best four teams. And Alabama is better at this point of the season than Florida State is. I think if you look at the reaction, look across college football, if you would rather play at this point in time Florida State with their backup quarterback and what they've shown on offense versus Alabama who's surging, everybody would say, well, obviously you'd rather take the team that anybody that's in the playoff right now would be a 2-score favorite over Florida State. You can't say that about Alabama. Now, that doesn't mean that this was the correct decision for what is fair or what is right in the landscape of college football. But by how the rules were written, the committee did the right thing, again, by how it was written. I hate it. I hate the structure that we had for this long, and that having 4 spots for 5 power conference teams. Again, the committee was bailed out for a very long time, and this was, I think it's for a number of reasons, I think it's great that this is the last year that we had this structure.
Agree fully on that, Taylor. In terms of the games, it's almost like they've gotten lost, right, from last weekend because there's been all this blowback as far as the teams go. But what were your thoughts on Alabama and this journey they've been on ever since that Texas loss and all the questions about Jalen Milroe and him getting benched? And now here they are, and they beat the unbeatable and break that streak that Georgia had going towards, the third national title. No one's ever done it. That's not going to happen again because the Tide rose and are once again SEC champs. Your thoughts on just the journey that they've been on and now how they're kind of rocking it as they are going to go into this playoff field?
Yeah, well, look, I think one of the things that has also been lost is what an incredible performance and coaching job that was by Nick Saban.
Yes.
And I understand at a national level there's some fatigue, right, from Alabama. And I think a lot of people were rooting for Alabama to not get in just because people want to see different teams in the playoff. That's human nature. I get that. But the performance that defense specifically put on the field against Georgia, that's out of Nick Saban's storied career, I think that should go down as one of his best coaching performances. What they did on defense and some of the things that they changed after the first couple drives, he talked about it in his post-game presser to try and confuse Carson Beck, to mix up looks, to get guys in spots where they could influence Carson Beck. I thought it was a fantastic job. I think, like I mentioned a minute ago, Alabama back half of the season is a different team to what they were in the first half of the season. That doesn't discount Texas going into Tuscaloosa and winning by 2 scores. But I do think you're seeing Alabama play better football in the back half of the season. And the argument that a lot of people will use is, well, look at how they played against Auburn. Rivalry game on the road in the SEC, the emotion that comes with that. I think as long as you win that game, you see that they turn around, they beat Georgia. I don't want to sound like an Alabama apologist, but that is a really good football team that is playing well down the stretch. The thing that also stood out to me was for a number of reasons, obviously getting into the playoff being the number one, but I thought Texas ended up in the best spot out of all of these teams. They end up in the 3 seed. They don't have to play Michigan or Alabama in the first round. They get to play a team that I think they match up probably the best out of all 4 against in Washington. And they get to play in the Sugar Bowl, which is a state over, and it'll be mostly a Texas crowd. So for a number of reasons, I thought Texas ended up with the best draw out of these 4 teams.
Taylor, I want to go back to, you mentioned the rivalry game. What is it about it? Like, I know there's no science to it, right? Where that one, the emotions and all that, you've played in them before. Like, what is it about playing in that game that everyone cares about more than all the rest of them that makes them so much different?
Well, go back to Texas' loss against Oklahoma earlier this season. I know that wasn't on the road, but neutral site, hostile environment. Texas outgained Oklahoma. All the power metrics, they had played better than Oklahoma, but they turned the ball over, I think it was 4 times. Quinn Ewers played by far his worst game of the season. And rivalry games force teams into making mistakes that they otherwise wouldn't have in the college level. These are not professionals. Even regardless of how much the top end kids are getting paid, they're still not professionals. And there's emotion that comes with it, especially when you're on the road. And so I think anytime you have a team, go back to Washington having to escape against Washington State late in the season, right? I don't care. More often than not, I don't care what it looks like in a rivalry game as long as you win. Now, there are exceptions to that example when a team is really down bad. But if it's a team that is even competent and that's your biggest rival, you should expect that you're going to get everything they have and more on the other side. And all it takes, or all it matters, is coming out on the other side with a win in those games.
Taylor, what have you made of the transfer portal here early on? A lot of quarterbacks, Dylan Gabriel, just one of the many names, Kyle McHargue. Just as far as quarterbacks go, there's plenty to talk about at that position alone, but anything jump out to you as far as this early few days of the transfer portal?
Well, I think the first thing that jumps out is just the volume. Again, it's shocking to see the number of kids that jump in the portal, and it's also a reminder how many guys we have that are still out there with eligibility that benefited from a COVID year, and it's still screwing up some of the recruiting in high school and junior college kids. Because you got guys that are out there. Tyler Shuck transfers from Texas Tech to Louisville. It's going to be his 7th year of college football between COVID years and medical red shirts and his regular red shirt. So we still have another couple years of that playing out with kids that were impacted by getting a COVID year. The other thing that kind of an overarching thing that stands out to me is we just need some sort of governance over this so badly. And there's a number of things that I wish we could change about the transfer portal era. I think it's great that kids have the opportunity to move around, but there is no other structure in sports where you can pick up whenever you want and move on every single time. That you have a kid that builds up, they have a good year, they put together one good semester, and then they move on. And the people that we talk to week in and week out, the argument is, well, coaches can move around. Why can't kids move around? Coaches, you're seeing guys that are getting out of the business because this is so exhausting having to recruit nonstop. And I just keep going back to, we need some sort of governance around when kids can transfer. I would condense down the portal window. I would also move it to where it's after, and I get there's compliance issues with end of semester, but having bowl games where a third of your roster hits the portal if it's not a meaningful bowl game, that's a broken structure. And the last part of your question, I thought Kyle McHargue is an interesting one, and that probably means that behind the scenes, Ohio State told him, hey, we're going to go pay a kid, we're going to go test the portal, and when you get that signal, you realize that's not a job that most people give up. Starting quarterback at Ohio State hitting the portal to me means they told him behind the scenes, hey, we're going to probably go get somebody else.
And 11-1 too. I mean, like that.
Yeah. We can do better.
Oh, well, and the thing is, Taylor, and like this is just what's kind of. I mean, and look, they'll get some. I'm sure they'll get somebody, and everybody like, wow, Ohio State. But he's 11-1, and the one that they lost is Michigan. The guy who lost it the 2 years before was C.J. Stroud, who was the second pick in the draft. So it's not really a quarterback thing that Ohio State's not beating Michigan necessarily.
Well, I would say some of the quarterbacks that Ohio State has had the past few years, I think it's reasonable for that fan base to feel a little spoiled at the quarterback spot. And there was a step down in production in Colin McCord. There's no doubt about it. That is not going to be a first-round pick. Can he be a really good college quarterback? Yes, I think he's already proven that. Is he going to be an elite college quarterback that has a chance to be a difference maker in the biggest games against Penn State and Michigan? No, I don't think so. And that's what Ohio State is after. They are year in and year out, it feels like for the better part of, a decade, Ohio State has had blue-chip quarterbacks that end up being NFL draft picks and sometimes in their backup spots. Joe Burrow was a backup at Ohio State. So I can understand the frustration from Ohio State fans in that regard. I do not understand some of the irrational calls for Ryan Day's job, a guy that's, I forget what his record is, but he's got 5 losses and they're all against top 5 teams. I would pump the brakes there for Ohio State fans. But in this world where the highest bidder can go buy a new quarterback, and Cam Ward is the guy that I would be thinking about, it doesn't altogether shock me that they are moving on from Colin Ford.
So, I was looking over the list earlier of all the transfer court. You got Aiden Childs is in there, Dylan Gabriel, McCord, let's see, Dante Moore, Will Howard, amongst some of the names. But would Cam Ward stand out to you above all those guys, even just slightly?
I think Cam Ward has the highest ceiling. That's an NFL arm. And his story, for anybody that is not, by now, most people have at least heard the name, but go look at his story from being completely unrecruited, goes to Incarnate Word, who at Incarnate Word, they had to hide him because they didn't want him throwing at camps because they were afraid somebody else would discover how talented this kid was. Goes to Incarnate Word, sets all sorts of records at the FCS level, follows Eric Morris to Washington State, and now he's about to make quite a bit of money for one more year of college eligibility. I think he's probably got the highest ceiling. Dylan Gabriel is interesting because I don't think that is a top-round NFL draft pick. I think that's a guy that will fight to get on a roster, but is a really good college quarterback. He's accurate. He's got a quick release. He just doesn't have a real big arm. He struggles driving the ball downfield on deep shots. But that's a guy, I believe he's on a visit this weekend to Oregon. That would make a ton of sense for Dan Lanning, who's somebody that could come in, run your offense effectively, pretty mobile as well. That's another one that stood out. But, keep tabs on this stuff because The Athletic does a really nice job after the transfer portal closes of tracking where kids end up. Some of this is forced, right? Some of this is not just kids that are testing the portal on their own because they went out and did it on their own. A lot of these kids are being told by coaching staff, hey, you're not going to have a spot here next year. But a lot of these kids that end up in the portal at the FBS level do not end up at another FBS destination. A lot of them have to either transfer down, and then some of them just altogether don't end up with a roster spot anywhere.
What do you think about DJ Uiagalelei and where he might wind up?
Yeah, it would not surprise me if he followed along with his former head coach from Oregon State to Michigan State. I think that's a style of play in the Big Ten that he would fit in there. I think Pac-12, colder weather, Big Ten, physical, run the game, run the ball well, have a good solid run game, play action off of it. I think if he were to follow in the footsteps of his head coach to Michigan State, I think that would make sense. You don't want, if I'm DJ Uiagalelei, I'm steering clear of conferences like the Big 12, anywhere where you're asked to be pretty mobile and put the ball up 45, 50 times a game throwing the football. I think those are the systems that he'll look to avoid. But it would not surprise me if he ended up at Michigan State.
Taylor, I can't remember. Have we talked to you since, it's only been a few days since Jake Spavital got hired at Baylor. I'm not sure how familiar you are with him, but obviously a big change over there for Dave Aranda, and he had to make some changes, heading into next season. It's do or die, basically, for him on the hottest of hot seats. But any thoughts on Spavital and how that might shake things up in Waco, if at all?
Yeah, we did talk about it, and I said, this is where I said that I was surprised that they brought Dave Aranda back. And
that's right. Yep.
I've told you guys have very loyal listeners, and it was another reminder of that after I said I was surprised they brought Aranda back. They let me know, some of which agreed, but some did not agree with what I said.
Okay.
But for Spav, look, I think that's a guy that obviously there's potential there. I think the biggest thing for Spav is just an opportunity to get back to where he's not having to deal with recruiting. That was the piece that I think he really struggled with at Texas State, where they just completely moved away from high school recruiting and was really just hitting the portal and junior colleges. But under Aranda, I think there's certainly potential there. I think there's more than coaching staff. The piece that Dave Aranda can't say, it's really roster issues. There are holes in the roster and talent deficiencies that they're going to have to address in a major way in the offseason that clearly were issues this year. And Spav, I think, was a good hire. I think a good addition, but like all of these hires, you never know. A lot of these on paper, they look fantastic, and then you get halfway through the season and sometimes they end up being a disaster.
Yeah, I thought it was very telling and very coordinated that Spavital, like some of the first things he said was talking about how much he likes the Texas High School Coaches Association and respects them. And I was like, yeah, you probably needed to say that after the Texas State tenure and the portal stuff. But sticking with, before we let you go here, one more coaching thing. Willie Fritz, I mean, you're a guy very familiar with the American Athletic Conference. Very interesting that Jeff Traylor staying put, it appears, at UTSA. Willie Fritz obviously going from Tulane to U of H. Then Mike Aresco's out the door, retiring as well. But what do you think about what the Cougs did in getting Willie Fritz down to H-Town?
Yeah, I thought that was a home run hire for Houston. Willie Fritz, for most of his career, head coaching gigs in the state of Texas, going back to his days in junior college and at Sam Houston State, before they made the jump to FBS and before Casey Keeler. He is a program builder. If you look at Willie Fritz's career arc and trajectory, everywhere he's been, he's won. And Tulane, I think people have held his 2021 season against him. And I think people are just using it as a bullet point to say, well, look, they went 2-10 in 2021. And I would just remind people that was the season that Tulane spent about 2/3 of the season, I think it was, or about half the season in a hotel because they had gotten slammed with a hurricane. So there were a number of reasons why that 2021 season I would just take out and point to the success that Willie Fritz has had at every level. And I think he'll do the same at Houston. I think the other piece, Jeff Traylor, I think that buyout, because it was a 10-year agreement that he signed, that buyout gave heartburn, I think, to Houston, where they're going to have to spend a little more than they wanted to, just to, not only to what they were going to have to spend on his contract. And I think Fritz is making $4.5 million a year, but Traylor, I think his buyout was like $7 or $7.5 million. And the structure that he has in place with UTSA, I think, is what ultimately kept him there for at least another season.
Taylor McHargue with us every Thursday. Taylor, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. One of our favorite guests. He's
I'd like to go around the horn on just various things. There's obviously a lot to unpack, all the stuff that's going on. But yeah, we could sit there and I knew we kind of had to ask sometimes general, like instead of going bit by bit of maybe it would be better like let's go Dylan Gabriel. Now let's talk Cam Ward. Now let's talk, go like one by one, but we can't really afford to do that. But he could, get down into the dirt on just the transfer portal quarterbacks and spend an hour doing that because there's a lot of big names in there. I think now like there was a lot of teasing, and I think a lot of that too was just promotion for websites to get readers, but like the big buildup of what the transfer portal is going to look like, and it's like, oh my God, you're not going to believe it. Names you'd never expect. And it was like, well, I kind of expected DJU to go in the portal after he lost his coach. And I kind of expected Dylan Gabriel might move on if the NFL wasn't going to be a big realistic shot for him. And I kind of thought that, some of them are surprising though. But I think now that it's shaken out and kind of settled down a little bit, like you do look, and that quarterback class is very interesting. Like it maybe it wasn't full of surprises, like shocking decisions, but all added up, there's, 10 guys in there that are all very interesting targets for any number of programs, and that's just the quarterback spot. So, yeah, it's very interesting.
The ones that intrigue me the most are the next Cam Ward stories to whatever that degree that is. Like, it's not necessarily Incarnate Word, but like Toledo to like, maybe Michigan. I don't know. Like, I don't know where, he could wind up. DeQuan Finn, like,
DeQuan Finn would be a good example.
Yeah.
Matthew Sluka from, Holy Cross is a name that's been thrown around a lot with the Baylor fans here recently. Yeah. I've seen that amongst some of the other names like Chandler Rogers is a guy from North Texas who's very likely or is going to take a step up. He's going to be in a Power 5 conference next year unless he were to go to Notre Dame or something. You know what I mean? Like an independent would Notre Dame, I guess, would count as that, even though I guess you could lump into the ACC. But yeah, he's going to take a step up is what I'm getting at. And he's one of those guys you're referring to.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we come back, Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. This is 365 Sports.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. GXG works with partners and donors to offer a suite of options to student-athletes, including connections with local businesses and nonprofits, entrepreneurial development, and other avenues to broaden the NIL profile of student-athletes. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Donors may wish to support the general fund or direct funds to specific sports. Oversight of the NIL Fund is managed by the Board of Directors of Startup Waco and the Baylor NIL Advisory Council. GXG is a program of Startup Waco, a tax-exempt organization under Internal Revenue Code Section 501c3. Donors should consult their tax advisors regarding the tax deductibility of donations to GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome back into 365 Sports. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross. Smoak will be back on Monday, visiting family out in the Sunshine State. We got some little off the radar here, as we always do on Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45 Central Time. And for those who maybe are just joining us for the first time, just a grab bag of stories is what we typically take a look at here in this segment. Just depends on kind of the news cycle of what all's going on. Sometimes we'll have a lot of college football if it's interesting enough, and sometimes have very little to none of it. But I did want to at least pass along here that we've been talking about this, but the Jeff Grimes official is the Jeff Grimes hire is Twitter official. Kansas has put out a graphic here in the last hour. Welcome to Kansas, Jeff Grimes, Rock Chalk, and a link to the story and write-up for him. Also a tweet from Jeff Grimes talking about how he and his family are thrilled to join the Kansas football program and admired it for a long time. So we got to cover him the last 3 years, I guess that was, here in Waco. And I just want to say one final time, good luck to Jeff Grimes.
Absolutely.
But I think it's going to be a great fit for him. I really do. I think that's, you already have a program who's familiar with what you do, very good at what you do, built for what you do. And that's going to play really well, I think, for the Grimes family and for Lance Leipold and company. But yeah, so that's now officially official, and we'll see, man. A lot of split opinions on Jake Spavital and what all this is going to look like. This is the weirdest offseason I think we've ever entered for Baylor, because at least in past offseasons it was like they're building towards something or it's a brand new coach, but we've never gone into year 5 of a guy.
This like the only
at least
time,
I haven't. The only guy who was around for 5 years was Art Browse, and then he got fired.
Yeah, I would compare this a little bit to it's not the same because they hadn't been good in so long, but the last year of Guy Morris was a little bit like he brought in they called him the sniper because he used to be a Marine sniper, but he brought in this spread offensive coordinator that didn't really take. In that year, and they just didn't have the talent, and they wound up, not going to a bowl game, and he got fired. But I would say this one is a little bit especially in the modern era of Baylor success, where there's a situation where it's win or go home.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting. I mean, that's what's going to be. It's going to be very interesting just because it's unfamiliar territory, uncharted territory, and you know that every single game you're basically coaching for your life, and that's always the case, so to speak, but not like this. This is literally like this is it for you, and I bring them up really because of the Jeff Grimes thing, and now that's official, but also I did double check, and Kansas will play in Waco next year, so they will see the wide zone of Jeff Grimes up close and personal at McLean Stadium, so that'll be a fun little subplot to that game, but there's plenty of other stories going on right now. LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels racking up honors. He's the AP College Football Player of the Year. That announced earlier today. Second winner for LSU in the past 5 seasons. He got 35 of 51 first-place votes from the AP voters. And he finished ahead of Michael Penix by a pretty good margin. Penix had 15 first-place votes. So 51 first-place votes for Jaden Daniels, 35 of 51 for Jaden Daniels. Michael Penix got the other 15. Bo Nix finished 3rd. Marvin Harrison finished 4th. Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State running back, finished 5th for AP College Football Player of the Year. And, of course, Caleb Williams won that last year. But of those 5 finals, those 5 names that I just mentioned for the AP Player of the Year, only Ollie Gordon will not be in New York this weekend for the Heisman Trophy ceremony on Saturday night. And there's only been 2 times in the last 20 years that you've had a different Heisman winner than an AP Player of the Year winner, and it sure seems like everything's shaping up for Jaden Daniels to bring home a Heisman to LSU. But I have to say, and this is with no disrespect to him, this is one of the least hot, debated, interesting Heisman races maybe ever.
Yeah.
And it's not because he was so dominant that you're just like, wow. It's more like he was pretty good and everybody else was pretty good, but I guess he was the best of all of them. And so, yeah, he's the Heisman winner. I don't know. There's just not really the type of impact that I'm accustomed to with the Heisman Trophy. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah. I mean, like he has great stats. He's got great numbers.
I think it's because he's not on a great team.
Yeah,
that's
and
what
he's
it
on
is.
But Bo Nix losing to Penix twice probably takes him out of it. Yeah. For sure because
has to.
Yeah. At least some people believe that head-to-head matters.
Well, twice, man. You beat him twice. Yeah. Like, come on now.
But Marvin Harrison Jr. is a wide receiver. For whatever reason, no matter how sexy that position has been, it's still hard. I mean, Devontae Smith won it a few years ago, but I mean, it was one of those things where like this dude's just. I mean, he affects every game so ridiculously. Right. And Kyle McCord might have hurt Marvin Harrison in that regard as well, for being just kind of a good quarterback and not a great one.
Sure.
But yeah, this is not classic like Heisman, like, oh my gosh, like we've had the last few years.
It's a far departure from when it was the national championship set up when you had 2 guys from Oklahoma, 2 guys from USC, and they were playing in the national title game. And that was coming down the pipeline. This is just like all guys on pretty good teams, and there's some playoff guys alive. But yeah, LSU just not great at 9-3. But you pretty excited that they're going to probably have another Heisman Trophy winner here come Saturday night, Mr. LSU Garrett Ross?
I am. I mean, I'm just kind of torn on it because I would love to see Jalen Daniels. I would love to see Jalen Daniels get the Heisman, but I mean, I kind of think Penix should get the nod. I mean, he's got the dubs. He's got the numbers that are pretty similar. I think it was Dean Strika or Peter Burns one. I saw like their debate or their reasoning for Jaden Daniels was he was not only the quarterback for LSU, but essentially their running back too because of everything he did. I just don't know if you took. And this is kind of delusional because if you took Penix and put him with LSU with that poor defense, does he do and get you? What's the difference in that compared to what Jalen Daniels done? But that's apples to oranges or whatever. But I wouldn't be surprised if he won it. But I think Michael Penix has the better resume overall.
I was watching him on Saturday night. Some of the throws, he's got great wide receivers. But I was sitting there thinking, like, I don't know that he doesn't deserve the Heisman Trophy, and I don't really understand why he kind of got pushed to the side when he was the favorite there for like a brief moment, and then it was all of a sudden it was Bo Nix, and it was like, well, didn't he beat Oregon and then win and beat him again? But I'd rather have the national championship than the Heisman Trophy, so that's what Michael Penix can go and get. But yeah, the Heisman ceremony coming up on Saturday, and Jaden Daniels winning AP Player of the Year would just seem to reinforce, based on history, that he will probably be the Heisman Trophy winner on Saturday night. Meanwhile, there is a lot of NFL declarations going on when it comes to the draft, and there's been a couple here out of the ACC that I've seen today. For one, you had Barrett Carter at Clemson announcing that he will be entering or Clemson star linebacker announcing that he will be back with Clemson next year. So that was one of those random, like, hey, somebody's actually returning to school. But elsewhere in the ACC, besides Clemson's junior linebacker deciding he's going to return, Florida State will not get that type of good news when it comes to wide receiver Johnny Wilson, who has announced that he will be entering the NFL draft. And obviously, a big-time playmaker for the Noles. This isn't a huge surprise, but he is going to be skipping the Orange Bowl and not playing as he will start to get his draft preparations underway. So is that changed next year? If that's a playoff game, if the expanded playoff, that's what college football hopes for. That's probably going to be the case for, I would think, most guys that are involved. But Johnny Wilson not playing in the Orange Bowl. So that's also why you can't really look at that game and go, well, if you the whole talk about the conversation beat Georgia, and that's the declare yourself national champions.
They're 14-point dogs in that already. So,
really? Oh, wow. Okay, that probably didn't help Johnny Wilson news either, so yeah.
No, I'm sure that's part of it. And part of the 14 points is they're just anticipating Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman and Trey Benson and probably Jaheim Bell.
How are they going to score?
I mean, so... what FSU has to hope for is that Georgia does the same exact thing. The difference is they'll have their starting quarterback and FSU won't.
Yes.
Of course, I'm told if FSU had their starting quarterback, they wouldn't be playing Georgia. They'd be playing Michigan. But I don't know if I believe that completely either.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
I do think that had he stayed healthy, I don't think that the committee would have had a choice. I think they would have had to have put Florida State in. I don't think that because what's the argument?
Yeah.
They don't have their what? I mean, they'd have every. So yeah, I think it was just the perfect storm at the perfect time for Alabama, really.
Well, it should have been the perfect storm to leave the SEC out, like it was.
It was
because like it hit all the bingo. But anyway,
and that would have been the gutsy thing to do. Yeah. But anyways, yes. Let's go on.
But with Johnny Wilson, here's the deal. I'll give you the draft profile on Johnny Wilson. Somebody's going to draft him in the top 100 picks for sure because of his size, his speed for his size. He's not. He runs really well for a guy who's 6'7", probably 235 or so, and he's kind of like, I'll use a figure skating reference. If he's got to nail a triple Lutz, he'll do it. If he has to just sometimes, turn around, swing on the round side of the rink, he won't catch it.
It's like a giraffe. He's so long and limbs,
So like sometimes if those, like, hey, it's 3rd and 7, they throw it to him like, a quick little slant. He'll drop that one, but if it's 3rd and 7, there's a defender draped over him, he's getting interfered with, he'll catch it with 2 fingers and,
You got crazy length, yeah.
Yeah. So, but he is, he winds up in the right situation, he'll be a pretty good NFL player. And then, of course, we're waiting on Keon Coleman to say the same thing. And Keon Coleman will be a top 15 to 20 pick.
Yeah, well, Johnny Wilson.
Jared Verse, too,
Yeah, definitely him. But Johnny Wilson finishes with 41 catches, 617 yards, and just a couple scores this season for Florida State. But he is now in the NFL draft. Long, as you mentioned, 6'7", 235 pounds.
He missed 3 games this year. Also, like, the scores were kind of a surprise to me, but FSU had this really weird thing where they would get a 70-yard play and get knocked out at the 3, and then that's where Trey Benson and Jordan Travis kind of come in. So, yeah.
Yeah, so he's entering. He'll be a long, big-time catch target. But as you mentioned, some of the just the simple stuff. You make hard stuff look really simple, make simple stuff look really hard. Is that kind of what you're getting at there? Yeah, that's Johnny Wilson. Well, he'll be entering the NFL draft. As I mentioned, Clemson getting good news there with Barrett Carter deciding to come back. And those were kind of the bigger decisions that I saw today. I know you mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. earlier. Who else was it? Caleb Williams has said in the past couple days that he's going to be a game-time decision. Like, whatever, dude. You're going to the NFL draft, but you want to make a big announcement or whatever you want to do, that's fine. So I would expect a lot more news when it comes to the NFL draft here over the next several weeks. Meanwhile, Colorado's heading to the Big 12 next year, and Dion and crew had the great start to the season that faded off and really just ended up in, no bowl game and a lot of questions headed into this offseason, but they did get some good news today as 5-star top-ranked offensive lineman Jordan Seaton announced that he is going to be heading to Colorado. He chose the Buffaloes over Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, Oregon, Ohio State, amongst many others. Said he liked the connection with coaches. He liked that there was a black coaching staff, saw familiar faces, and also, I think, challenged guys and other recruits in his message of, like, if you're a dog, like, why would you want to go anywhere else? So, big-time 5-star offensive line commit out of Bradenton, Florida's IMG Academy. So, big-time commit for Dion, and Lord knows if they need 5 stars, they need them on the offensive line more than anywhere else. And so that's a pretty good get for prime time and the Colorado Buffaloes as they get ready to enter the Big 12 next year.
Yeah, especially with Shedeur seemingly coming back, even though I do think that if he went, he'd go before the
he's going to be an NFL guy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if he went this year, he'd go before about the 35th pick, I would think. I mean, so he might not be a guaranteed first rounder this year, but you never know, man. I mean, he's going to be an NFL guy. He was
not why they were bad. He was not why. He was about all they had in some cases, along with Travis Hunter. But I was actually pretty impressed with Shedeur as far as just his play goes. I don't know about the watch and the rollie and all that kind of stuff. He got his karma for that as the season went along. But I think he's a great leader and a great player, and I enjoyed watching him when he was healthy and actually able to function behind that offensive line. Meanwhile, speaking of the NFL, tonight you've got your Amazon Thursday night game for those who want a little bit of football. Patriots at the Steelers. This, at one point in time and for many, many years, would be an AFC Championship game matchup. This would be, winner goes to the Super Bowl, obviously, and just a big-time regular season game. Not really many times where this wasn't a big game, and now it's there.
It's two backup quarterbacks playing against each other and two of the worst offenses in the league. The Steelers fired their offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, a few weeks ago. A couple weeks ago, finally, because they have just not produced on offense. Mike Tomlin is loyal, and I think that's an endearing quality.
Yeah.
But the Steelers are not, with some of the offensive talent they have, Najee Harris and Jalen Warren and George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, and they've got dudes, like, they're just not getting the ball to them and not running an offense that was effective. And the Patriots are, and I never thought I would say this about a Bill Belichick coach team, but they are an absolute unholy mess.
Yeah, Mac Jones isn't working, and Bill Belichick's not working, and nothing's really working, and so there's a very good chance that they got a new head coach and the number 1 overall pick, or I guess they wouldn't. It'd be the Bears,
they're
right?
Second right now. They have
Bears,
the second or third pick. Yeah, the Bears will have it because they have the Panthers pick, and the Panthers are the worst. But
so not Caleb Williams or. I guess who else is in that?
I think they're second, right? Let me tell you. So they could get Drake May.
Drake May, yeah, that's who I was trying to think of. Drake May or Caleb Williams. So they'll get one of those two guys most likely because the Patriots are only just 2-10.
Yeah. Second pick in the draft.
Okay,
right now,
so you get Caleb Williams or Drake May. Sorry, Mac Jones, but you've had your chance, and they'll probably have a new head coach as well. Steelers, meanwhile, actually. Okay, 7-5, not terrible compared to the Patriots at 2-10, but that game's coming up later on tonight on Amazon Prime, 7:15 Central Time, the start time. And an interesting note on Patriots head coach Bill Belichick. I'm not sure if you guys saw this. There is a college football game this weekend, as you know. It is Army-Navy. It's got its special spot here in the month of December at the end of the regular season. And that's already a fun matchup as it is anyways. But it has also been announced that College Game Day's special guest picker will be one Bill Belichick. So that is going to be the guest picker as they have this thing there in Foxborough. So be interesting to see him on the game day set for Army and Navy. You been following game day much this year?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, look, I refuse to watch the Fox one just because of Urban Meyer. So
okay, you had a protest. I see that.
I'm not. And look, I've watched it a little bit. I think Mark Ingram is actually really good on TV. But no, I'll watch it. I know Corso's old. I kind of want to see it for posterity.
That's true. He is.
It's very old. I have been keeping up with it. Theo Vaughn was the guest picker last week, which if you know Theo Vaughn is a comedian and podcaster, it was very odd. And like I loved that it was very Theo Vaughn, and that was odd.
Yeah.
And like he has a manner of speaking and making jokes that like was just befuddling to everybody but McAfee. But
I can see that, yeah, for sure. For sure.
But he was there. I mean, PFT commenter was a guest picker. They've done good in keeping some of the variety while still getting some of the classics. Joel McHale was great. I think he went like 11-1 in his picks. So they've done really well in that. I like the show. I think it could be obviously a little bit better, but you know, I still like it. I keep up with it.
Well, they'll be broadcasting live from Foxborough because the game will be there at Gillette Stadium, Army and Navy, and so that just makes all the sense in the world, especially given Belichick's background, all kinds of come together for the perfect storm. So he will be the guest picker this Saturday before Army-Navy, and that game will be at 2 p.m. On CBS. So you can find Belichick there with the crew. Meanwhile, just one more note, I guess, I want to get to here. We haven't touched on a lot of college basketball. Y'all see that Texas Marquette game? Shaka getting his revenge last night. That was very, very interesting as Marquette and Shaka just destroyed Texas in a battle of top 15 teams. But I'd imagine as we get closer away from the end of the season that we'll get more and more into the hoop side of things. But that was a very interesting result last night. And one final thing, Juan Soto heading to the New York Yankees. I always try to sprinkle in a little baseball if there's a big enough name, and I certainly feel like Juan Soto applies here. But traded from the Padres to the Yanks, 7-player deal. Big-time all-star outfielder, now going to be wearing the pinstripes and joining the likes of Aaron Judge there in the Yankees outfield. But just wanted your thoughts as a Red Sox fan, a guy who follows the AL East in Major League Baseball, obviously. What do you think about Juan Soto going to New York?
Well, first of all, this sports week can't stop punishing me. Like
it felt like a long week, man.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to walk out of the studio and somebody to come and just kick me in the nuts.
Brick fall from the second floor or something. Yeah.
What was that about? I don't know. No, it's a trade the Yankees had to make. They had to do something like this because their offense was woeful in a stadium where it's easy to hit. He'll
hit a lot of home runs in that ballpark.
Yeah, and so now they also picked up Alex Verdugo from the Red Sox, who Red Sox fan called not Mookie because he was a part of that Mookie Betts trade that just keeps getting worse. This is how bad the Mookie Betts trade is. The last guy remaining from that trade, you traded to the bleeping Yankees. That's how little it helped you. And you traded the best right fielder in football, or football and baseball for that. He'd probably be the best right fielder in football too, Mookie Betts. But it's a good trade for the Yankees. They're going to have it helps their lineup, but it's him and Judge. Stanton's he's not healthy all the time. But if he's healthy, then that's great.
Sheesh.
They need to get more out of some of their other guys, and I don't think that they're done. They clearly can't be. But they still have Garrett Cole. The Red Sox and Yankees were the last and second to last in the division, so they both have to get better. I'm not optimistic about the Red Sox doing anything. They seem to be in that spot right now where the Rangers always used to be, where they're talking to every free agent, but not going to sign any of them.
Right, yeah. Yeah, they're in the mix, but not there at the end of the night. Yeah, well, that was a big-time get for the Yankees, getting Juan Soto. So I thought I would make mention of that as well as we try to sprinkle a little baseball as it fits. But there you go. There's a few things off the radar.
There you go. This is 365 Sports. Back in a moment.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com in White House, Texas, just outside of Tyler in East Texas. And another auction, Samantha, is gone. Aged Wagyu beef and so much more you have on your ranch. How did it go? And what is next?
So we had our Very Merry Beef auction. We tried doing one completely online this time, and it went really well. It lasted for over 3 days. We are planning another auction January 30th. This auction will be an in-person, online also, a live auction like we did the first time. You come out to the ranch, dinner is going to be provided. It'll be a variety of steaks, hamburger, sausage, tri-tip, brisket, roast, all of the different Wagyu cuts. But we still have online our family bundles, summer sausage. That's a huge hit this time of year. It's perfect to give to teachers or hostess guests or to have out on your charcuterie board for your Christmas dinner. We have those available online. Our last day for shipping is December 13th. That way we can make sure that you've got it there by Christmas. TexasBeefHouse.com. Use your SICM10 code to get 10% off. So we just want to tell all of our customers Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank you so much for your continued support in the year of 2023, and we hope that you return to us in 2024.
And they will. Repeat customers because the product is amazing. Aged Wagyu beef, TexasBeefHouse.com, and this is 365 Sports.
Ring in the new year with unbeatable savings on the new 2023 Ram trucks during the wrap-up the year sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Take advantage of this limited time opportunity and start the new year in style. Shop our great selection in-store or online today.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments and financial advisor Chuck Verno, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Mickey Spagnola in the next segment, talking Cowboys, and then we'll have the top five. And the top five today was by request, Craig. And let me go to Twitter, and I'll tell you who requested it. Tim Finch sent me top 5 ways coaches need to strategize differently in the transfer portal era. So that will be the top 5 today. And if you have a request, if I can fill it, I will do it for you.
Okay.
So, I used to, when my very early days in radio, one of the stations had a request line, and a guy, and he didn't know the name of the song. You Give Love a Bad Name's the song, but he would call up every day, 5 times a day, and leave a message, and it sounded like this: "Can you play Shot Through the Heart by Bon Jovi?" And I never, like, it was just, that was the message, and we didn't have caller ID on that phone. So I really want to call the guy and be like, would you like me to get you a CD of Bon Jovi's greatest hits so that you can hear this song whenever you want? Or are you trying to dedicate this to a chick or something? I don't know. But it was, the request line on music stations was really weird. But I can do a request line for the top 5. If I can figure out 5 things, then I will do it. And Tim Finch, your request is filled today. Craig, we talked about, I think we're both not comfortable because we don't really know the situation with Tomlin at Kansas State, but it's weird what's going on there where there was a protest on campus for him and he showed up to it, and some thought that maybe his suspension would be lifted. Now he's completely off the team and he'll be in the transfer portal. I think more details need to come out about what happened and why he's gone. Most of the Kansas State fans are blaming the university president for this situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not the one to really speak on it. Like I said, coming out of the break, it's an interesting story. I commented on that. This is a very strange story, and that not everything's adding up based on just what you read throughout social media. That there's more than just one side to the story. He obviously was arrested, disorderly conduct, and that happened, about a month or so ago, and there was that. But there's been all sorts of other just kind of discussion, and I'm following along with the K-State guys that I follow along with, and I did notice that there was, a lot of pushback on the university president for not clearing up matters or not clearing him to play or, whatever. When I first saw the story, like I mostly stick to college football or, other sports before I get to college basketball. And so I just thought like it was something kind of simple and a clearinghouse, or I didn't know. Like I just was like, what's this hot debate about? I started kind of seeing more and more here over the last few days, and then it sort of all just came to a head where now he's no longer with the program at all. Tang had obviously been very outspoken about it for the last few weeks about his status or lack thereof. And he's a big part of what they were planning on, having as far as that team goes this year. And, he didn't, as Tang said, live up to their requirements or their expectations for their players. And clearly that part of it is absolutely true. But, he got into some trouble and was suspended, and now he's no longer on the team. And there's a lot of finger pointing going on, and a lot of the fans and even some media pointing at, the university itself for that decision. I see a lot of other primarily Kansas fans who are saying, well, it's his fault and he did this and did that. But I don't know the story as well as those two fan bases. Nobody knows the story better than your own other than your arch rival, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't know it as well as those two to know everything and feel super comfortable talking about it. I know it's just very strange, and there's a lot of he said, she said going on, or he said, or she said, going on in this conversation. But no longer on the team, and that's obviously a pretty big blow for Jerome Tang and Kansas State basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very confusing what's gone on there. Another story we didn't get to because Smokey's not here, but John Rahm is going to live for $500 million.
Yeah,
so, and then that's going to push these negotiations with Liv and the PGA Tour back. Probably they're trying to get it done by the end of the year, but I don't know. Like, man, like I don't know what. Like, I just every time this comes up, we talk about it. Like, I'd like to be able to stand on my ideals and be like, no, I'm not taking $500 million, but
it's $500 million freaking dollars, man. Like that's yeah.
I don't know if I could. I don't know if I have the willpower.
I mean, it would depend on what am I making already for one, and even then, like if you're making $30 million, maybe that's enough. But is $500 million going to convince you? I don't know. I think all of us can say what we like to say when we're not presented that opportunity.
Yeah,
it's easy to say when I have no shot of getting even a single cent of that money, and I'm a proud American, and this and that, but. Money does talk, and I guess it would have to depend on your situation and how much you already have. And for some people, enough's never enough. And so I don't know. I don't necessarily love seeing guys go join up with Liv at the same time. Like, I totally understand it, and I can see the argument going the other way. I think just the whole kind of interest from overseas in American sports and kind of slowly creeping into the point where you're now seeing that talk entering college football is really alarming, and just I don't know how great I feel about all of that. When you start talking about like the private equity funds, right, with the Florida State conversation that got drummed up a couple months back, and how that could be a potential indoor into how you see, an entity from Asia, Europe, wherever, start to get their claws into American sports via college football. So that'll be something interesting to follow along here over the next few years. But yeah, that's a big get, I guess, for Liv. I'm not a golf fan, so that goes above my head. But it did seem like a big get, and yet at the same time, I'm kind of confused because aren't they basically under the same umbrella now? So is he's leaving the PGA, but is he not still going to be part of PGA? Or would he'd still be a part of the majors, I guess, not PGA, but the majors.
Defending Masters champion, though.
That's a big deal, yeah.
Yeah, and look, the PGA's got to fix this because you can't keep losing your stars.
Well, college football's got to fix what else and it's not any, we're close to doing that. And so, yeah, I don't know what golf's answers are. I mean, they're at the same time, there's one side, battering the other and war of words and all this, and now they're basically under the same footprint. So I'm confused by how all that's going to work moving forward, other than I guess they'll come together for majors. But beyond that, I don't have the slightest clue about the operations there. But yeah, that's a big name and I guess a big get for those Live Golf fans out there.
Yeah, all 200 of them.
I don't know. Yeah, not my wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's not mine either. But I did think we'd bring it. It's just an interesting.
Yeah, it's a big name.
It's a big name.
It's a lot of money. I mean, my gosh, that's kind of crazy to have that. I mean, because you're just burning that. Like, he's never going to get you $500 million worth of advertising anything. I mean, that's no chance. So if you got that kind of money to just burn, that must be nice for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Yep, absolutely. Craig, anything we've missed?
That is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, isn't it, behind Liv? I think so. Yes,
it's Saudi Arabia.
I believe so.
It's the Saudi Arabia. It's the PIF,
whatever.
The public fund.
Yeah.
That's just insane.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig, anything we missed today?
I don't know, man. I feel like I've touched on quite a bit. I don't think so.
You play. You're coming out of it.
I'm trying to.
You're coming out of it.
I can at least breathe today. I could not breathe yesterday for the life of me, and I should not have been here, as I said to y'all off the air, but I was, and I am glad that I did it. But definitely feeling much better about my decision today.
That was your Jordan game.
No, yeah. No, I think I've been sicker actually and still been on air. But no, that was not fun yesterday, but it was nothing compared to what a lot of other people are doing as far as work or just whatever they're dealing with. So yeah, I'm not feeling sorry for myself at all. It was just I'm glad to feel better today and actually be able to breathe, given that you have to talk a lot. So yeah.
Absolutely. When we come back, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. This is 365 Sports.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Oh, Richard Carr, Buick GMC, how lovely are your SUVs. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick GMC, I love the trucks you have for me. Strong and tough with luxury, room for all my family. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick GMC, you are the dealership for me.
Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, is your holiday item superstore. Half spiral hams, 8 to 10 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Pit hams, 12 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Bone-in hams, 18 to 22 pounds for $3.40 per pound. Whole raw turkeys from 12 to 16 pounds for $2.50 a pound. Whole smoked turkeys, that's smoked turkeys at 9 to 12 pounds for $3.75 a pound. And mini pit hams, 6 to 8 pounds for $5.99 a pound. And don't forget, they have full service butcher shop where you can find what you want: pork, poultry, seafood, and beef. And I bring up the beef because big beef tenderloin or a prime rib. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family, full service bakery with fresh baked kolaches every morning and bread and cold beer and wine. Tailgate needs from pellet fuel to charcoal. Waco Custom Marketplace and the holiday items, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with Mickey Spagnola of DallasCowboys.com.
Prescott, fire, caught, Lamb, touchdown!
Brought to you by the First National Bank of Central Texas, with 5 locations to serve you.
Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. And Mickey, last week was unique to the Cowboys win-wise, outside, I guess, the Chargers game, but that was even kind of a different team than they are right now. That one was an adventure, but they held on and made plays to do it against a good team, which I think should be encouraging down the line, because for the most part, their wins have been shred somebody to pieces or they lose. Like, that's kind of how it is. They were able to play a couple different types of games within one game last week.
Yeah, they got off to somewhat of a slow, well, it wasn't a slow start. They got off to a good start and then fell behind. And, for kind of the first time, had to play catch up to win a game. But I think the good thing that they can certainly take from it to gain some confidence is, down the stretch, they were very resilient, and they made plays when they had to make plays to be able to win the game. And I think that they found a way to win, right? For the last couple of weeks, we've been patting, or the nation, nationally, they've been patting the Eagles on the back. It's like, well, they didn't play very well, but boy, they're resilient. They found a way to win. Well, the Cowboys found a way to win. But all I heard was criticism of the defense. Now, obviously, they got to take that. They gave up 35 points, and you certainly don't want to do it. But when it was time to win on 3 consecutive possessions, they shut the Eagles down on 4th down stops. So there's something to be said for that. And, Paul, I don't think people understand. It's hard to win 4 consecutive games in this league. And I don't care who you're playing, right?
Yeah.
And right now, it's the Cowboys, the Niners, and the Colts with the longest active winning streaks this season. Active winning streaks, and it's 4 straight. If it was easy, a lot of other people would be doing that.
So this week it's the Eagles, Mickey, the division up for a tie right now, and that was a place. The Cowboys towards the end of the season last year had it in shouting distance, and they could have done it if the Eagles, if they could have gotten tied before that last week of the regular season when it didn't matter. They maybe could have changed that. This is a different situation now. They are a few weeks out. They can be in a tie for the division with a win at home on Sunday. And this team seems to approach the moment a little bit better than it has in the past. They had the Eagles dead to rights a couple times in Philly. What has changed in your mind since that Philly game that this team's been on this 4-game winning streak?
Well, number one, the mission was to win 4 straight and get to 9-3 by the time they played the Eagles again, and then hope you got some help. Well, they got some help. So they're 9-3. I think they played well in the Philadelphia game. They just didn't win it, right? Defensively, you give up 28 points. Offensively, they were like maybe 8 inches away from scoring 10 more points, and would have been enough to win the game. I think the resurgence, and probably starting with the, somewhat the Chargers game, the offensive line has played much, much better. Let's hear it for continuity. It does make a difference. They had to go through different combinations. The offensive line hadn't played together with their starting 5 for a lengthy period of time, not in training camp, not in the off season. And so over this last month, they've been together, and I think I've seen some improvement. Now, it'll show that they gave up some sacks against Seattle, but a couple of those were blitz pickups that the running back didn't pick up. So I think if you see that, you're saying, well, Dak's playing better, CD's playing better, Tony Pollard's playing better. Well, the offensive line is playing better. And when the offensive line plays better, you generally play better on offense.
So that Eagles game was a rough one for Terrence Steele. That was maybe the worst game he's ever had, and he hasn't had many bad ones, seeing as he was one of the better Cowboys diamond in the rough finds ever. He's played a heck of a lot better since that game as well. When you're talking about the offensive line, that was a rough night for him, and he seems to have adjusted.
Well, you're right, but he didn't have to play Hassan Reddick the next 4 weeks, right?
No, that's true.
And he's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think he's got 9.5 sacks right now.
Mm-hmm.
Although he got probably a couple of those against the Cowboys. But yeah, he has played better. And I think we forget that he's finally almost a year removed from his torn ACL and the other 2 ligaments that he tore too. So I think sometimes the further you get away from the injury, the surgery, the better you are. And they had to make some sort of adjustment to the treatment he was getting. And I think they made it. I don't know if it was an equipment thing or a medical thing, but since that game, yeah, he's played better and better and better. So that hasn't been an issue. But again, sometimes it's just matchups. Now, the other thing that has to improve is they need to cut down on the penalties. There was a lot of penalties, if I remember, in that game. And a lot of them, if they're competitive penalties, you're okay with that. But the false starts, the lining up in the neutral zone, you just can't have those things. And especially against the team with the talent of the Eagles. So even though they got beat pretty handily by San Francisco, it's still a pretty talented team. So the Cowboys offensively just have to get in and do their business against a team that, by the way, defensively, they're ranked 29th against the pass, and the Cowboys are ranked 3rd in passing offense. So, I know everybody wants to talk about the running game, and you got to be balanced. You know what? If you can pass like that against a bad passing defense, then just go ahead and sling it around.
Mickey, it does not matter how they win this game. They just need to win it. I mean, that's people can get lost in the details later on, if they don't run the ball against some other teams, but whatever has to happen for them to beat the Eagles, that's just what they have to do, right?
I heard, I guess it would have been Saturday, after Alabama beat Georgia, Nick Saban said, the best thing about this win is we found a way to win, right? And that's all that matters. And I kind of wrote it down, and the more I thought about it and the more I've heard, kind of what guys are saying this week, it's almost the mantra, right? Just find a way to win the game. And sometimes that's tough. But the Cowboys did make plays when they had to make plays. None bigger than the 4th down stop DeMarcus Lawrence made on the running game. I think it was 4th and 1, 4th and 2 at the most. and they stopped them on fourth down, got the ball in Philadelphia territory, and were able to turn it around in 7 plays and score a touchdown to take a lead. And that's what you have to do. All the years that I was around Jimmy Johnson, his mantra all the time in practice, on the sideline in the game, who's going to make the play? Who's going to make the play? Well, the Cowboys had some guys come up and make plays late in the game to be able to just win the game.
Mickey, I know that Mike McCarthy is expected back at the facility tomorrow. What is the plan B, just in case he's just not feeling well enough to go?
Yeah, I think that they've been through this before. As DeMarcus Lawrence said, shout out to COVID, because he had COVID, remember, and they had to practice and get ready for a game without him. I would say 2 things. Number one, if he doesn't think he's strong enough to stand for 3.5 hours on the sideline, he could always go up in the coach's box and call the game from there. Number 2, I think Brian Schottenheimer is quite ready to be able to call the game. They'll have all the plays mapped out and how they want to do things, and McCarthy will be part of that. And I would think Dan Quinn would take over as kind of making the head coach decisions while Schottenheimer is calling the plays. And, really almost the way they go through things, Paul, tonight, it will go as normal. Schottenheimer, McCarthy, and Dak Prescott get together and they kind of plan out the game. I mean, the how they want to call the game, right? And basically you go from there. They practice the way they would have practiced all week. So I would imagine Schottenheimer is more than capable of calling the game. And you know what? I bet Dak could call the game if you needed to, right? Because, they're not going to surprise them with any calls. And I think, most people just think the offensive coordinator's picking plays out of a hat big enough for 100 plays. They've got it scripted down and what they want to do on this down and distance. And you just kind of look at your play sheet and go, okay, this is what we wanted to decide to do on 3rd and 7 from the Philadelphia inside the 40-yard line. And so, I think that they could get by, but it sounds like McCarthy's ready to get back. They're going to probably FaceTime, Zoom the meeting tonight. And then the fact that he thinks he'll be there tomorrow, as Dan Quinn said, he said, do you think that tough Irishman's going to miss this game? So I think he'll be there, but you're right. They'll have a contingency plan in place just in case.
Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Mickey, thanks a lot. Talk to you next week.
Good to be with you, Paul. See ya.
Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, one of our favorites. When we come back.
Hold up. Cool. I got a transfer portal announcement that's worth mentioning. Houston wide receiver Matthew Golden is now officially in the transfer portal.
They finally got to him. Whew.
Yeah, after putting out a statement on Twitter, I guess that was 2-3 weeks ago, that basically was like, I'm staying at Houston. I'm 1,000% committed, blah, blah, blah. Well, then Dana Holgorsen got fired. That gives him his out. He's getting out. Matthew Golden, a pretty dang good player there for U of H, got hurt this past year or else would have had even more numbers. But that's a big loss for the Cougars and new head coach Willie Fritz. And already seen a lot of Longhorns in his mentions and seeing a few other teams starting to creep in there as well. So he'll be a hot commodity. But, yeah, Matthew Golden of Houston, wide receiver, now in the transfer portal.
He's going to get some offers. He was the one that I think Dana Holgorsen referred to when he was talking about, outside of Alton McCaskill, obviously, that he lost, but people like tampering with his players. So,
oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, he was probably one of those guys, and we'll see on McCaskill if he's ever going to make an impact at Colorado, because obviously was still dealing with somewhat of an injury last year, never really played much. But Golden was a really good player for Houston over these past couple of seasons. So big time wide receiver now in the portal there from U of H, and a loss for Willie Fritz, but. Part of the deal. So, yeah, I just wanted to pass that along.
When we come back, the top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has been proudly serving Texans across the state for over 60 years. Call 254-772-8090 to find an agent who will provide a free review of your auto, home, and life coverage.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs, too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 ways coaches need to strategize in the portal. This is from by request from Tim Finch. So here's your Bon Jovi song, Tim. But no, I thought this was an interesting topic and thought we'd dive into it. Number 5, and this is kind of not necessarily like in order of what you have to do, like maybe in order how you start it. So 5 to 1. But number 5, who can you afford? That is the first question you have to ask yourself. How can we afford this person in the portal? Do we have the NIL budget to do so? What are they asking for? The negotiation process is not as straight. It's not as straightforward as professional sports. We'll just put it that way. It's still very nebulous to how all these go because there's not any kind of rules to it. So you have to figure out what money you have available and who you can afford and where those slots go. So that's the first thing you have to do, which is something that is very new to coaches because that's not, completely what they had to do before. It's not like they weren't throwing some under the table things around college athletics too. But as far as now where people can just straight up ask for it and you can't say, and you can't, go, well, that's illegal. You have to figure out what you have in the kitty.
Yeah, what's this topic again? I'm sorry.
Top 5 ways coaches need to strategize in the portal.
Okay. But aren't they not really supposed to be involved with that anyways? That's another part of the stupid setup of college.
But they are.
No, I know, but I'm saying, I'm pointing out the stupidity of the whole thing, is that they're not even technically allowed to be involved in that part of this whole thing, at least when it comes to working with the collectives in most cases. So, yes, I guess pull whatever money you got from your donors and your collectives and figure out, what you're able to spend. That is a good starting point when you're about to go out on the market and basically go into free agency is, what do you have at your disposal and how do you sort out of that pool how much you need for how many people? Do you got $2 million to work with? How many guys do you need? You need 14 players? Well, you got to strategize and figure out how all that money's going to work. And yeah, suddenly you need even more staffers to now give financial advice and help break down the money to pay your roster. So, yeah, that's pretty wild.
Number 4, go for longer-term depth. So, there are going to be those one-hit wonders that you get that are going to help. But the guys who really help you, and this is, I'll just use the Baylor example, where they were hurt in this year's roster particularly was that the 2020 class was not a great one. And then the 2021 first portal class that they could have made up for some of that where you find more players that fit was not really more than like 2 or 3 guys. So you need to use that time to not necessarily just get the Cam Ward who's going to make a huge difference for you, but get a guy who's got a couple years that you can develop to make up for maybe, especially if you're a newer coach, the guys that didn't hit right away and may not fit what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of depends on what situation you're looking at. I mean, I think everybody ideally is looking for depth, but I mean, you can bring in all the transfer portal guys you want, and they don't necessarily pan out, you know? And so, yeah, ideally, you'd go for longer term depth. If you're putting together your list of to-dos, this would be on there, but whether or not you're actually able to do that is a totally different story. There's a number of guys that were brought in this past year, just down the road, that didn't end up doing anything of note whatsoever. I mean, a handful of guys. That you wouldn't even have realized were on the roster that were big gets out of the transfer portal. They'll be back next year, some of them. So I guess that plays into some of that depth. But, yeah, whether that's impactful or not is a different story.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I'll just say this. With the one-time transfer rule now in effect for guys who have not graduated, getting a guy who's a redshirt freshman has a little bit more value, even if he's not totally ready to play. If he's at a position of need and you feel you can coach him up, then that is something that'll help you. Number 3, fill your starters first. Like, you got to find the spots where, hey, we need to have a guy that starts here right now. And so I know it's kind of a common sense thing, but now that you have it available to you, like, look, if you need Baylor probably needs a starting quarterback. I don't know, that's the first thing. They're going to have to get a quarterback or two, no matter what, in this cycle. And they got one, I know, coming in as a recruit. But they're going to have to get somebody to compete with Sawyer Robertson. So that's something they have to do. If you're Colorado, you got to find some offensive line starters. Like, even the guys who were bad on your team last year are leaving in the portal. So you can't rely on the returning starter, maybe they'll be better next year thing. You got to go get those starters and fill at least those out first before you start thinking about everybody else you got to get.
Yeah, I think it's kind of common sense. You need a quarterback. You better go get yourself a quarterback. If you need offensive linemen, better get those guys. So, yeah, I agree that you need to get your starters wherever those holes are. And I guess if you have the luxury of worrying about filling out depth, then that's a luxury, and you can worry about that later on. But, yeah, it doesn't really make sense to get your fourth linebacker before you get your first offensive lineman unless you – I guess, have a plan in place to where that's how it's supposed to work out, I suppose. I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, it's important to get your starters in there.
Number 2, leave no stone unturned. Find your Cam Wards, your Jared Verses. Those are the guys on the thing. There's a quarterback for New Hampshire that's on his way to Minnesota. They haven't been great at quarterback. He's going there. Who's the guy from Holy Cross?
I already forgot his name.
But yeah, go find those guys. There's 3 linemen from the Ivy League that people are getting. Joey Slackman, Thor Griffith, and there's one more that people are looking at right now. And look, if you're good, if you're good on the next really dominant on that lower level, then you can be a good player at least in the Power 5. Florida State has a guy named Braden Fisk who you saw dominate against Louisville the other night. He came from Western Michigan. Those are the guys, to me also, some of those guys might have a little bit more value than the 5-star who's burned out, right? There's always going to be the guy, well, his guy was great in high school and I can fix him. But the guy who's on the way up, to me, is a little bit more interesting, especially if you're trying to maybe close the gap and win the conference title. Those guys who are veterans and are on the way up might be better for you than the guys who might be on the way down.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on the situation, and leave no stone unturned. I guess you look everywhere. Matthew Smoak is the Holy Cross quarterback that you're trying to think of, and I couldn't remember his name. I just don't know how much you can really do this now because I feel like now everybody knows who Matthew Smoak, the Holy Cross quarterback, is. Who knew 2 weeks ago who this guy was outside of just hardcore football fans? And now, he's not well known, but I think he's much more well known now than he was, and that goes for a lot of guys. But, yeah, find your Cam Ward if you can find him. I just think now people know about Cam Ward, and now they hey, better go check out Incarnate Word, see if they got any talent. Better go look at Holy Cross. And I don't know how many people were doing that beforehand, but they are now. And so it's harder to do than before. But, yeah, I mean, you definitely need to look outside of just the guy from Auburn or the guy from the Oregon schools or just somebody who's from a name brand. There are good players out there that didn't end up at those types of places for one reason or another, whether it was grades or just overlooked or whatever the case may be, and now here's a big opportunity to go and get those guys where they rightfully belong. That's certainly what happened with Cam Ward.
Yep. Number 1, make a splash when you're given the opportunity. You know, I know that like this and number 5 may not go right together, but when you can make a splash with a guy who can make a huge difference in your program, I think you got to do it now. You know, especially if it's the perfect fit. So I think some people are too liberal in the portal. Some people are too conservative. You got to play that thing right in the middle. But sometimes when the opportunity to make a big move presents itself to you from somebody you can, then go do it and don't get caught up in the details of it. I think that college football is a little bit different now because, and look, it's not like you're tied to this guy forever too. That's the other good thing. The difference between the one thing I'll say is better about college free agency than pro free agency is, you know, you sign a guy to a 5-year contract in the pros, even if you have to cut him after a year and a half, like he's a total bust, you're on the hook for all his money. In college, it's just this time. Then it's over. So, you know, I say make a splash when you can. But
I mean, yeah, I think that's what everybody's trying to do is make splashes with the transfer portal, and the bigger the better. You know, it doesn't always necessarily. It's like signing day. It's the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah, you sign a splashy 5-star. Sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't, but you at least get that splash on signing day. So yeah, if you've got that opportunity in the portal, which, you know, it seems like there's more and more splash players that are in that thing with each passing year, then. Yeah, if you're able to do it, then cannonball, I guess. Go ahead and make that move.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you, Craig. Thank you, Garrett. Thanks to Olan Buchanan, Taylor McHargue, and Mickey Spagnola. Thanks to Emery. Thanks to Levi. Thanks to Jack. We're back again tomorrow. We'll have Dan Lust right off the top of the show, pretty much, walking us through the legal ramifications of what would be the proposed new NCAA subdivision. That and much more. This is 365 Sports. Have a good night, everybody.